President, we are now streaming on YouTube.
I'll call this meeting of the Westland City Council to order. We'll begin today with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council President Pro Tem Michael Londo.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilman Godbout.
Present.
Councilwoman Green.
Present.
Councilman Herzberg.
Here.
Councilman Londo.
Here.
Councilman McDermott.
Here.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Present.
President Hart.
And I'm here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. We will have special presentations and announcements tonight. It's a couple of them. First comes from State Representative Kevin Coleman. So Craig, if you see Kevin, go ahead and activate him for me. There you are. Kevin, are you there?
Hey, good evening, City Council. Can you hear me?
We can, Kevin. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes here. It's been a while. I wanted to call in when we had some positive news from Lansing to share, and I do have some positive news, and I'll cut right to the chase. The governor, Republican leadership, and Democratic leadership have agreed on the targets for the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for the state of Michigan. This budget, we had a sense all year that there would be a huge $3 to $4 billion deficit for the state because of loss of revenue due to coronavirus and businesses being shut down. Thanks to some federal funding through the CARES Act, we've had a lot of money come in, and that budget deficit will be under $1 billion. But what that means for the city of Westland and our school system is what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. And the biggest thing that I really fought for was to not have any reduction in funding to our local cities and our schools. And the agreement that we came up with as a state is wouldn't cut any revenue sharing to the city of Westland or the city of Wayne, which is also in our district. And it also wouldn't cut any K-12 school aid funding. So this is really important. I was really proud to bring around $3.5 million additional funding for our schools last year as your state rep. And all year, it was my fear that possibly we could lose that additional funding. So very important that we protected that, and that our revenue sharing and our school system won't be harmed at all. So that's the good news. A couple other points that I'll just make. I don't want to take too much of your time out of the meeting, but a couple other things going on in Lansing. The governor recently announced the Futures for Frontliners initiative. Many members of our community worked really hard during the stay home, stay safe orders, which obviously, helped reduce the spread of coronavirus. These are the people that made sure we had groceries, cared for the elderly, cleaned hospitals, took care of patients, delivered goods to homes and businesses. And that's why the governor has gone ahead and announced Futures for Frontliners, which would provide access to tuition-free college education for those workers. Those are for individuals who worked at least 11 of the 13 weeks between April 1st and June 30th outside their homes in the essential industry and have not earned a college degree. This program will provide them with the opportunity to pursue high demand and high wage careers. Those eligible will need to file an application before December 31st, 2020, which can be found at michigan.gov/frontliners. Next up is the Return to Learn package. Now, this was the agreement, again, between the House, the Senate, and the governor that got us ready for our school year, which, as we know, the kids are back to school. Most districts are doing virtual. As you know, Wayne Westland is virtual for 9 weeks. And then after the 9-week deadline's up, they're going to reevaluate what to do. It's my hope that the kids can get back in the classroom sooner than later. But the return to learn package, what was really important to me in there is that it maintained local control and it permits school districts to determine the best course of action for their students and their families. So some districts are back in person in areas where it's safe to do so. And some districts like ours are going to continue to do virtual for the time being. But I think it's really important for young people to see their teachers in person. It's important for parents to have their children in schools. So hopefully we continue to get good news as far as the death rates and the rates of people being hospitalized due to coronavirus. Hopefully those numbers continue to go down, and we can get our kids back in the schools. Wayne Westland schools did receive an extra $800,000, which the state kicked back to our schools through the CARES Act dollars from the federal government. A couple other things I'll mention: unemployment. Our office has probably spent more time helping people process their unemployment claims than anything else this year. We've helped over 1,000 of our constituents here in Westland and Wayne process their unemployment. The system was very overloaded, especially in April and May. I think most of my day was spent on the phone with people trying to get their money, and it's unfortunate that what happened to our state, but I felt it was important to put some of the legislation I was working on to the side and make sure that people were able to get that unemployment money. But I will tell you that an extra $300 per week of supplemental unemployment has been approved by the federal government. These benefits will begin being released within the next 7 to 10 days, as the Unemployment Insurance Agency is waiting for approval from the federal government and creating the system to administer these supplemental payments. People who are already receiving unemployment will not need to file an additional claim, as their claim will be updated for these payments. For those struggling to get their claims processed, our office has helped resolve these issues and will continue to do so. I'm going to give you my contact information for my office in a couple minutes here when I'm done speaking, so that if you're listening, you can take that down. A big kind of weakness of our state that was uncovered during coronavirus is the state of our nursing homes. So we know that almost half the deaths that occurred were in nursing homes. And it's something that's been important to me for a long time, but I think coronavirus gave me the opportunity to kind of seize the moment and really shine a light on how bad some of these places can be. And that's why I took the initiative, and I got with State Rep Leslie Love, who represents the west side of Detroit and Redford. We put together a package. It's a 10-bill package to address many issues exposed by COVID-19 in nursing homes. It creates accountability and safeguards for seniors. We know not everybody in a nursing home is a senior, but typically it's people who can't care for themselves, or who have some kind of disability, or who are older than the age of 60 or 70 and need help getting through the day. But one of the bills, there's several bills. They're all intended to help make nursing homes better places to live, and to help the workers who work there provide better care for the patients. One of the bills, which I sponsored, it requires the contact information for the long-term care ombudsman at the state of Michigan, who is the regulator of nursing homes, to be posted visibly for residents and visitors right at the front door. That way, if there's anything going on that shouldn't be going on, or people aren't being cared for or being neglected, they can report that abuse or health violation to the state so that we can investigate and intervene if necessary. While this is a first step, And of course, many more issues will need to be addressed in the coming months and years. These bills are a great start in the process of fixing Michigan's nursing homes. And I want to thank City Council for holding a study session in the last week or two to talk about this and to consider a resolution which would support this bill package. So I appreciate your consideration on that matter and your concern. Lastly, I'll just say that it's a positive thing to see that our gyms and organized sports are opening back up, and especially our athletes in high school and of all ages are getting back on the field and doing what they love to do. Of course, we want to make sure everybody's safe. So I just encourage parents to let their children know that, we can get back to regular life, but we got to do so with the thought in mind that those with pre-existing conditions or the elderly are at risk. So just as you go forward, it's very positive to see things opening back up, but just take precaution. And I'll just lastly mention, I've been visiting residents at their homes a little bit as I've been out walking this year in some of the neighborhoods. I do have some extra masks that were donated to me. I still have a few on hand, so if any residents want to contact me, feel free to give me a call. My cell phone is 734-751-6321. Also, for those who need unemployment help or any other assistance, please give my office a call. Our number in Lansing is 517-373-2576. You can also email us, which is a great way to get some help started with us. Our email address is kevincoleman@house.mi.gov. City Council, thanks again for taking the time. Mayor Wild, thanks for your work this year on behalf of the citizens. City Clerk Richard LeBlanc, good luck with the election. I know this is a big one. You probably won't hear from me until closer to the election or afterwards, but thanks again to all of you for your service, and please let me know if I can be of assistance in the future. Everybody take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Coleman. Next up, we have Lisa Nassarini, who is going to talk to us today. So Lisa, can you hear us, and see if we can hear you?
I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. So go right ahead, Lisa. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Council President Hart, members of the council, City Clerk LeBlanc, Deputy Mayor, the chiefs, staff, everybody. It's been a long time. We've seen each other on Zoom. We've talked to each other on the phone, but this is the closest we've really gotten quite a bit. So I have some updates this evening that I wanted to give you. I've been providing council with updates in the administration over the last, several months. But the mayor had asked if I could this evening provide a few updates to you. It's going to take me a few minutes to go through this because my team, the Nassarini Strategy Group, and members of the administration are to be thanked. We've had a lot of successes, and it was time to really come out and start talking about those successes, which a lot of them are going to impact your budget in a positive way. I'm going to start out by saying that the city, a couple of months ago, received a grant award from the United States Department of Justice in the amount of $75,964 that went to the police department for personal protection equipment. The funding has been spent on protective gear and sanitization mechanisms and machines. So I have been working with Deputy Chief Beveridge and with Chief Stratner has been very helpful in this as well. Chief Jadrusik and Devin Adams, purchasing director, and we were able to get this grant reconciled and complete and the money spent. We had a very short time frame. So that was $75,964. We just learned last Thursday that, as in my report, I had indicated that the state had an allotment of $200 million. That was for public safety and public health payroll reimbursement. They had put $200 million aside at the state level, which was approved. And the hope was to provide funding reimbursement for police and fire services to cover all personnel costs for 2 months. But as you can imagine, the state received over 350 million in requests. So we did receive 1 month of funding right now. They are hoping that the legislature would consider another round of funding, which would help us with the second month. And these were April and May were the peak of COVID, as you will recall. So the city did receive $1.6 million in reimbursement. So I have to say that that was an incredible number. We just weren't sure. We put everything in that we could think of. I want to thank Steve Smith, the finance director. I want to thank Dan Block, budget director. Devin Adams again for his assistance, and everybody else who pitched in to help us get these personnel costs together. So 1.6 million is going to go back into your budget to cover personnel costs, which I think is a great win. Another win, we received a notification on Friday that hazard pay reimbursement through that grant has also been awarded in its entirety. And that's $141,000 that you did pay out for police and fire at the maximum of $1,000 per person. And so you are getting that entire $141,000 back into your budget. So congratulations on that. Again, I want to thank the teams I just mentioned. It has been a lot of teamwork for both of these grants. Moving forward, early this year, the city of Westland, just recapping a little bit, was awarded a grant from SEMCOG through the Transportation Alternative Program in amount of $235,000. Actually, the city had a match of about $47,000. So you did receive an award minus that match for $188,000 through SEMCOG. And if you'll recall, that was for 0.2 miles of new sidewalk along Palmer Road between Christine and Wayne Road. And I want to thank Ramsey for the partnership and teamwork on that as well in his department. Earlier this year, the City of Westland Fire Department, as you recall, received a reimbursement grant from MMRMA, who is your insurance carrier, through their grant program totaling $23,750 for the Stryker Power Load stretchers. The spend was in totality $107,000, but that brings your spend down to $83,250. So you saved $23,750 on that grant by through that reimbursement. I had also announced earlier this year, Vic Barra, myself and Kyle Mulligan had worked on a MParks grant, and that is to install a pathway at Hubbard Park, and that was received for $10,000. The Department of Justice has awarded the City of Westland Police Department grant funding in the amount of $17,264 for 7 in-car laptops and docking stations. And I worked closely with Deputy Chief Theveridge on that grant. And the funding will take some time to receive. This is a slower program through the Department of Justice, but it is money that has been allocated to the City of Westland Police Department. So congratulations on that. Total received is $2,055,978,000. So that is what you have received to date in grant funding. Pending grants, just going over those, if I may, Council President, real quick. We have a FEMA COVID-19 reimbursement grant that I worked on back in, and thanks to Devin's help again, because he had to help me collect all the receipts. These FEMA COVID-19 reimbursements grants through the feds were very difficult grants. You had to input every single item one by one into these grant sheets, and it took many, many, many hours to do. It's well worth it if we get the full amount of funding. We did put in for $255,000 in reimbursement. And a lot of that has to do with fire overtime, because as you know, your fire department with EMS runs, they were running wherever there were open beds. So a lot of that is overtime and bringing in staff. And I do realize whenever there was an open bed, that doesn't mean just go. And then with Beaumont closing for the period of time it did, the EMS were running all over the place. Ann Arbor, Dearborn, Taylor, everywhere. So the max we can get back is $191,000, $191,668. And the reason for that is because FEMA requires a 25% match. The good news is we submitted that at the end around April, and or the bad news was that we submitted a long time ago. But the good news is that we just received notification, Devin and I did, from FEMA that they are in final review. So we've reached that point. And remember, this FEMA grant was every single department, every single city across the entire country, every village, everyone was applying for this funding, hospitals, universities. So taking a long time, I figured we'd hear about it next year. So We just submitted 2 supplemental docs to FEMA, so we hope to hear back on that $191,000, which could fluctuate a little bit lower, but we're hoping that what we submitted will be sufficient. We're waiting on the second COVID-19 reimbursement round 2, which was submitted in May. That has not reached final review. The city requested $99,095, and the max the city can receive with the 25% match is $74,321. So hopefully that one gets it enters into the review process soon as well. So there's a couple hundred more $1,000s that we're hoping on and banking on. MDNR Trust Fund grant and passport grant. I've been working with Vic Barra and Kyle Mulligan over the last 6 months on an all-inclusive playground through these grants at Tatton Park. We are in a supplemental phase right now, which means that we have until October 1st to submit some supplemental documents. And the reason we applied for the same project for 2 different grants is because the MDNR actually had asked us to do that. It depends on how much money's in the pot at the end of the day. So basically we applied for both in hopes that one will prevail. One is for $300,000, one is for $150,000. And I want to thank Kyle and Vic for all their hard work on this. I met with them actually last week, and we have final documents that we're working on, and fingers crossed for a good outcome on that, one of those grants as well. The city of Westland also applied for an EAGLE grant through EAGLE, the state department, for infrastructure improvements at the city's recycling center. And so we did receive notification a couple of weeks ago. That's Ramsey and myself, and I want to thank Ramsey and his team, Hassan, for helping us with this grant. It's in the final round of review per a notification that we received by email. That grant is for $134,232 for improvements at the city recycling center, including a paved road, lighting, and signage. So we did get that one in, and we're waiting. I'm almost done. The city of Westland had a second grant application to EAGLE go in June for funding to market the new recycling program in the city of Westland for $50,000. That is still on review. This would cover mailers, new stickers for the bins, public services, service messages, etc. So we're waiting on confirmation on that grant as well. The FEMA for Assistance to Firefighters grant the city applied for in March is still pending for PPE. That was for $24,080. And then this one, we're not so sure that this is going to come through, but when COVID hit, the Assistance to Firefighter grant that we submitted earlier this year for a new quint for the fire department was still not awarded. And after the chief and I looked a little closer at the awards, it appears that they were moving more away from equipment, a large equipment, and moving more into PPE in those various areas. So they did a flip on us with that. I'm hoping that the AFG program will open up again so we can apply for that $550,000 quint that the fire department needs desperately. The last thing, the Department of Justice burn grant for Jefferson Barnes. As you know, we've been awarded successfully for Jefferson Barnes for the Learning Lab the last 5 years. We've been successful with that award. My team worked with Joanne, and I want to thank Joanne for her help. $55,000 for the Learning Lab. So that one was just submitted, so that is pending as well. So we have $1,529,302.10 pending right now in grant funding. And the last thing is we're working with the Westland Police Department on reconciliation documents for several Department of Justice grants that you have received or that are pending. Those are a lot of work. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of guidelines you have to follow. There's a lot of purviews you have to stay within, processes and timelines. So those are a little bit more difficult. They take a lot of time, as Deputy Chief Theveridge and Chief Jadrusik can attest to. It's an ongoing process, but we continue to work with the department to make sure that those grants are funded as well. Again, I just want to say we have total pending of a little over 1.5 million, and the city has received to date over $2 million in grants. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I apologize for the long rant, but I love giving you good news.
Lisa, we love getting good news. Is there any, I wish we were in person so we could all just applaud in front of it, but the Zoom call sometimes looks a bit cold, but I think everyone's applauding at home right now. Is there any questions for Lisa and all the wonderful work she's done for us so far? Well, Lisa, I'm guessing their silence equals a strong approval.
Oh, I
Uh,
sure.
so-
will. And I just want to thank the staff. We have been it's been a team effort all the way around. And and the work still continues. So we're just trying to make sure that we are seeking out any reimbursement, any grant we can. And there's a lot of moving parts. So I do appreciate everybody at the city of Westland, the administration, staff, and the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you.
All right, at this point, we'll move into input on the agenda. So this section will allow a person to be recognized only at the beginning of the meeting to address the council pertaining to items that are specifically on the business agenda. Questions asked will be answered during the agenda item following a motion support from council. Are there any input from the public on the agenda? Any input from the public on the agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll close input from the public on the agenda, then move into the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
I'll move, Council President.
Support.
Got a motion by Council President Pro Tem Landau, supported by Councilman Godbout. Any discussion from the mover?
No. No.
Any discussion from the supporter?
No.
Any discussion from the council? Councilman Hertzberg.
Thank you. Real quick, I just wanted to touch on items F and G. I don't have any questions, just a couple of comments in support. This is going back to the study session we've been talking about for a few months regarding nursing homes. It actually started last year when an adult daycare was proposed to go in. Council, all of us had reasonable questions on what their operations were going to be like, what the staff was going to be like, what the activities were going to be like. We wanted to outline that and make sure that these facilities are safe and provide a positive experience for those users. Coincidentally, the house in Lansing, as was mentioned before, came up with a bill package for COVID related, but this isn't just for COVID. This is going to be a long-standing, these things that are coming up. They want to make our resolutions in support of a central dashboard, similar to what we did with the police department, where you can go online and you can see complaints, you can see violations. It also requires that all the facilities are going to post the phone number and the website for making complaints. So going down the line, this is going to make things better. Before people want to put one of their loved ones in these facilities, they're going to be able to see what kind of complaints are coming out of there and perhaps make a better decision. I really want us to see us do more for nursing homes within the city. And I specifically, I want to thank Councilman McDermott and Councilwoman Rutkowski for their positive comments at the study session. We're all trying to brainstorm to figure out what we can do as a city, because we're limited in that. You know, it just seems like if you want to open a marijuana facility, you got all these steps you got to take. But if you want to open a nursing home, it's a little bit looser of a process. So again, we just want to make it safe and positive for all those users in nursing homes, adult daycares, and so on. Thank you, Council, for sitting in the study session, and looking forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councilman Hertzberg. Next, I have Councilwoman Green.
Thank you. I just had a quick question through the chair to the deputy mayor in Mayor Wild's absence. Item number J, the resolution honoring Kathleen Lamaco of SIMCOG. There are signature lines on the resolution for every member of City Council. So I was wondering when would be the most convenient time for us to stop. When will that be available for signature before it goes out? Thank you.
To the chair, Council President, as soon as council approves it, I'm sure the clerk will get it out to council as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the council? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
yes,
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council has approved the following consent calendar items. Approval of the minutes of regular meeting held September. Well, there's not a date on here, so I got to fix that. The regular meeting held September, help me out here, was it 7? I believe it was.
Mine says the 8th
The
on
8th.
my packet.
Labor Day.
The 8th, thank you.
Yes, it was the 8th, Tuesday.
Approval of minutes of the study session held September 14, 2020. Approval of subscription renewal with Zix Protect Essentials. Administration recommended approval of the annual email filtering software subscription through CDWG in the amount of $5,995. Introduction of ordinance 248A 100, an ordinance to amend the Westland City Code by amending section 110-2.1 to establish a temporary moratorium on applications for land use approvals, permits, or licenses to establish new automobile gasoline stations. Approval of City Hall rental room fee adjustments. The proposal is to increase the security deposit amount and to introduce a 4-hour block scheduling for hall rentals, which would include a microphone and projector screen within the package. Adoption of prepared resolution requiring city review of adult care facilities. Adoption of prepared resolution in support of Michigan legislature bills addressing nursing homes and for protecting elders from abuse. Adoption of prepared resolution of the city council authorizing termination of the water main easement located at 39200 Ford Road. Approval to accept water main easement located at 39200 Ford Road. This authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documentation to effectuate the recording of the easement. Last item approved on the consent calendar, adoption of prepared resolution honoring the service and retirement of Kathleen Lamaco for her 42 years of service to the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. Moving to new business. Item 1, approval of minutes of study session held September 14, 2020.
So moved,
So moved.
Rutkowski.
Support Hersberg.
Got a motion, motion by Councilman Murkowski, supported by Councilman Hersberg. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Point of order, Councilwoman Green, you were not at that study
I'm
session. You
sorry.
have to
Yes,
abstain.
you're correct. I abstain due to absence.
thank you. Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes. New business. Item 2, approval of special land use for proposed blood plasma donation clinic, 35363 Ford Road, south side of Ford, east of Wayne Road, Octapharma. This is Planning Department number 1258E. The Planning Commission recommends denial of the special land use for the proposed plasma clinic.
Motion
for
to deny.
denial.
Londo.
Support
Support Hersberg.
Rutkowski.
Okay, I'm going to pick motion to deny came across from Council President Pro Tem Michael Landau, and motion to deny. Right.
Deny.
Yes, that was the motion, and I'm not sure who the supporter was.
Yeah, the mover was you. And then the supporter, I heard Councilman Hersberg before I heard Councilman Murkowski, so he beat you to it.
That's fair.
All right, so first of all, for the mover and supporter, are there any discussion?
No discussion, thank you.
So it's to be easier for them to do the presentation first, then allow you guys to speak afterwards. So that's the way we're gonna do things moving forward. Sometimes there's confusion before, but that's how it's gonna work moving forward. All right, Mo, do you have anything to go ahead and share with regarding this? I know a lot of us watched, if not all of us, watched the Planning Commission meeting on this, and I think there was a very large presentation. So Mo, if you got a couple minutes, kind of just walk us through that again real quick.
Yes, I can summarize my staff report that's in your backup. I'd be happy to. I'm going to share my screen right now. You guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So the subject property here is located at the southeast corner of Ford and Wayne. It's approximately 1.5 acres and is zone CB3. That's our general commercial business district. The site contains, as you know, a vacant building in fairly good shape that was formerly occupied by Rite Aid with a drive-through pharmacy. The proposed request today is to renovate and use the entire building as a blood plasma donation clinic, approximately 40 beds, although that's to be determined. Blood plasma donation clinics are permitted in the CB3 district, which this is zoned subject to special land use approval by you. The parcel is developed as part of a previously approved site plan back when Thrifty Flowers and Rite Aid was approved, and to this day is compliant with the requirements of screening of parking areas and screening to the residential neighborhood to the south and to the east. The location of lawns and landscape areas required along the right-of-way or the road right-of-way are also in compliance as well. As it relates to traffic, there are no modifications being proposed. The existing curb cuts for ingress and egress are to remain and to be utilized. Although the existing drive-through window rather, is going to be removed as part of the renovation. And the facility will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. Approximately 40 beds, again, in compliant with parking. One of the big specific evaluation standards, they passed all of them except one, and they're required to pass all of them as part of the special land use approval, which is why the administration recommended denial, and is why I think the planning commission is also recommending denial. That standard is being compliant with a future land use designation. And for this site, that designation is community commercial, and the proposed use is not consistent with the newly adopted master plan future land use designation. I'm going to kind of give you why really quick, and that's it for me. Community commercial is described in detail in your backup, and blood plasma donation clinics are used for the extraction of blood plasma, or other blood components, either for commercial purposes, including biomedical manufacturing or scientific research or testing even. One of the master plan goals, and this is probably the biggest one as it relates to the designation, is to improve the quality of life for residents living adjacent to commercial corridors by providing uses to support their quality of life, such as dining, entertainment opportunities, shopping alternatives, medical offices, and a variety of other business type uses that are in the service industry or sector. And this is done by ensuring that approved uses along commercial corridors are consistent with the future land use designation. And as you know, or as I just kind of defined or clarified what blood plasma donation clinics are, while some people may think it's a medical office, it really does not provide a medical service to any of the residents or any of the commuters passing through the Downtown Development Authority. Speaking about the Downtown Development Authority, the property is located within the DDA. Not only is the proposed use not consistent with the master plan future land use designation, but also is not consistent with the main objective of the DDA, and that being establishing a district that contains service type uses for the enjoyment of our residents, and also to attract people to spend money in the city while they're driving through the corridor. And finally, the future land use plan is a guide to physical development. You should know this portion specifically. It provides direction on land use decisions for areas throughout the city. Land use regulations must be consistent with the future land use plan. So this is, land use decisions must be consistent with the plan. And the future land use plan, which is found in the 2018 master plan, was created through guidance of significant public participation during the master plan update. And therefore it delivers to you the community's vision for future development. The Planning Commission did hold a hearing September 1st and is recommending by 5-4 majority denial. 2 residents called in on the Zoom call expressing concern, and 3 wrote letters expressing similar concerns. I know Mike Vogt and Carrie Fleisch are on the call representing Aqua Pharma. Thank you.
All right, so you have the 2 petitioners here. I heard the names Mike and Karen. Is that correct, Mo?
Mike and Carrie, sir, yep.
Carrie, I apologize. Do either one of the petitioners have anything that they wanted to add briefly to this? I mean, again, I think we all watched the planning commission. Is there anything additionally that you wanted to ask? I see we have Michael V's hands raised, so I think you're in right now. Michael, do you have anything brief to offer?
Yeah, thank you, President. I appreciate acknowledging us for the floor for a moment. I did send along, kind of an updated version of that presentation, and I totally understand that all the members of the City Council have, observed the Planning Commission and saw what was raised there. If I could do just maybe a somewhat truncated version of that, if the President would indulge me, because there are a few distinctions I wanted to raise, and specifically with respect to points that were made and arguments that were raised at the Planning Commission. So I will do my best to kind of breeze through some of the things I know you've already seen and just kind of articulate some of the issues I want to raise for the City Councils. I do think they're important.
Yeah, that's okay. Just, try not to take 20 minutes or a half an hour. So I'd appreciate that.
I will do my darndest to get that done. And so I do have, as Mo mentioned, I have Kerry Klish. He's the Director of Facilities for Octapharma throughout the country. He can answer any questions about the technical, the use, the staffing, the operations, what they do in their community, maybe a little more specifically than I can. And then also we have David Rhea, who is the broker for the owner of the property at Rite Aid. And he joined us as well because he authored a letter that was submitted with our materials as Exhibit C to kind of detail his efforts in trying to list the property. Mo, if you don't mind, would you mind bringing up the first slide from my presentation? Thank you. And I'll just go ahead and go right to the next one, please. So here just provides some high-level facts about Octapharma's operations throughout the country, the size of the organization, the fact that they are heavily regulated throughout the country and frankly internationally. And what they do is they collect, test, and supply blood plasma that's used in the manufacturing of a lot of different life-saving medicines. You go next slide, please. As you can see, you've probably heard a lot about plasma in the news for its involvement in the fight against COVID-19. Obviously, in addition to that critical function, you'll see here a number of other vital and important conditions and uses that plasma is put to support medical innovation and develop treatments for debilitating conditions. Next slide, please. This gives you just a brief overview of the type of donors that come into a typical Octapharma center. And they have a wide variety of ages. They all, however, must be suitable from a physical health perspective, and they are screened and given medical examinations before they are allowed to donate. And also, which is an important fact, is that they all must have valid photo ID, be able to prove their residence, and prove that they have a valid social security number. And the reason I raised that, and I want to highlight it, is because some of the concerns that were raised by the members of the Planning Commission or maybe in an email that was submitted in opposition, and that's concerns over the clientele. Just to address the issue straight on. So these requirements and this criteria, prevent. This isn't a place where a homeless person can come in and seeking just a quick payment of money, or some sort of drifting, an addict or something, which was kind of the connotation that was delivered from maybe just a couple members of the Planning Commission that voted in favor to recommend denial. But that's really not the reality here with Octapharma's operations and with their donor base, because their donor base is verified and screened. And it's also heavily regulated in the sense that you can't come into, you're limited to 2 times a week. And that's regardless of what company you go to. It goes into a national database. And also the people that come in and they do receive a donor fee, it's put on a debit card, which I think is kind of a small fact, but an important fact. To the extent that people want to claim that people will be coming in for quick cash and using it for some sort of nefarious purpose, it's loaded onto a rechargeable debit card. And frankly, these people use these funds to supplement their income the way people do with a number of different side gigs and side hustles in today's economy. And this slide here is showing us just a few high-level numbers for the positive impacts that Octapharma's facilities bring into the communities where they operate. As you saw in my first presentation of the Planning Commission, if you could just go back real quick, thanks, Paul. This one center will create about 50 new jobs. And those 50 new jobs, to the extent possible, are filled by local residents. In fact, Dr. Pharma holds local hiring fairs upon completing their build out to try and recruit as much local talent as it can to operate its facilities. And these 50 jobs pay about $2 million in annual wages. So you can do the math. That's not simply just a collection of minimum wage jobs brought into the city. These are real, paying jobs that provide a true livable wage, something that's frankly important in today's economic climate, just generally, and even more so during the record unemployment we're seeing as a pandemic fallout. And the last part to note on here is that what's important is that the donor fees, those are local residents. Those are people who live nearby who come in to donate plasma. They pay out about $3.5 million annually from each facility. So between annual wages of $2 million and the donor fees, you end up with over $5 million being funneled right back into the local economy. Next slide, please. Kind of some things that should go without saying for any medical facility like this. They're operated by professionally trained staff. They're clean, they're comfortable. They're designed as first-class medical facilities, and they're in compliance with all local, state, federal, and frankly, international regulations and laws. As you can see on the next slide, if you would, Mr. Ayub. This shows just some general examples of the type of interior design and construction that goes into Octapharma's donation centers. You can see a couple of exterior pieces here as well, but if you go to the next slide, you'll see even a few more. These aren't exactly apples to apples with our site where we have a standalone building. I have a much better example to show in a moment of that, but this shows the kind of first-class construction that goes into these sites. Now we move on to the proposed site. As you can see, we have a standalone structure, former Rite Aid that was constructed or approved by the city in 1998 and operated there for 20 years before it was vacated in 2018. And it's located, as Mo indicated, in the CB3, which the quote provides there for the wide range of commercial businesses on this type of property. If you go to the next slide, please. And here, same image, obviously, but just pointing out a couple of facts that were supported by the broker's letter that you'll see in a second on the next slide is that, this site has been vacant for 2 years, coming up in October, despite the, licensed broker's best efforts to find it. He's affirmatively sought out interest from typical replacement tenants, CVS and Walgreens, and all variety of dollar stores. Never received any interest from any of them, despite multiple contacts. And as you'll see here, it has never received any interest from a restaurant tenant, which you can go to the next slide, please, Mr. Ayub, which is only raised because it was an issue. Each time I send this slide over, something happens where it doesn't quite come through, but nonetheless, all I did here, you see the letter on the right was submitted by Mr. Rea in support of our application. Really, that's only the first page of it, but he really provided a detailed analysis of his efforts to lease this property and the prospects for leasing this property going forward in the future. And since for whatever reason that quote didn't come through, I am just going to highlight it for you. The first quote was that he reached out to both CVS and Walgreens to apprise them of its availability. Neither one of the drugstores was interested. Same story for Family Dollar, Dollar General, and Dollar Castle. And then this next piece, he did address restaurant tenants simply because in our early communications with the city, it was stated to us in writing that the city would like to see a high-end restaurant go in here. And what he said was, I have not had a single inquiry from a restaurant user of any kind for this site. Further, is my opinion, the likelihood of a restaurant user being interested in this site is quite small, given the size and configuration of the building as discussed above. It's only been compounded by the mandated shutdown, the limited and regulated reopening of restaurants, and concerns about the possibility of further waves of government mandated shutdown, end quote. And the last thing I noted was his commentary just on the general state of the commercial leasing market, which probably doesn't take a commercial broker, frankly, to actually get to that conclusion. He said, quote, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated shutdown has effectively dried up the leasing market since March of this year, end quote. So that just details kind of the reality of what we're working with. Despite anyone's desire to see a boutique here or a high-end restaurant, the reality is that the property has been here for 2 years with a for lease sign and with a licensed broker listing it on multiple online websites, and actually going out and affirmatively beating the bushes to try and find new tenants for this space. If you could go to the next page. So here, this is the slide I mentioned earlier, which you may have seen if you watched the Planning Commission, but this is the, a really kind of a poignant demonstrative example of what we would do here. On the bottom, you have an actual image of the current site that we're talking about here today, the Rite Aid as it looks according to the Google Earth image right there. And what you have above it is what Octapharma just recently did in another state for another former Rite Aid, which frankly was in much worse shape than this building is to begin with. They've repurposed multiple Rite Aid locations and, filling that purpose of eliminating these vacancies, which are large and can be, kind of unwieldy to put a new tenant in, given their makeup. A couple of the other benefits that'll come along with this business at this site, it'll have less traffic and less earlier daily operations closing than the former Rite Aid. It produces no external noise, smoke, odor, other issues that people would typically consider a nuisance. Obviously, we maintain everything in a first-class condition, as you can see here. And frankly, it does bring a use that attracts customers to the neighborhood for other businesses, for the restaurants, for the shops, a restaurant, and frankly, customers who have a newly reloaded Visa debit card with what can be up to $50, $50 per donation to be spent in the community. And then this is the next part. I kind of want to just spend just a minute kind of describing a little bit about the road we took to get here. So if you could bear with me for just 1 second, because I'm jumping ahead in my notes here to try and cut some of this down. So when we first reached out to the city back in the spring of 2019, we received the letter that you'll see on top of this slide, and we don't have to go through the whole thing. The most important is in language is in the second paragraph, where it says that the proposed use of a blood plasma donation center does not fit nearly into any listed zoning category and is hereby classified as a special land use in the CB3. Now, down below that letter, I've included a communication clipping that we received that I discussed a moment ago, where the city expressed its desire in writing to the applicant that I quote high-end restaurant should replace this former Rite Aid. Just to quickly walk down the road that got us here tonight, since we received those initial communications from the city, and before we ever asked for special land use approval, we actually sought first ZBA approval to add plasma donation centers as to the list of permitted uses in CB3. And while that request was pending, we actually, through a FOIA request to the city, were informed that in 2017, the city had formally determined that CSL plasma's use, which is just down the road, but in the more restrictive CB2 district, was a permitted by right use. And that's it, and you'll see that slide in a minute, that letter. It was a permitted by right use that falls into the category of, quote, outpatient clinic, close quote, which are allowed by right in CB2 and also in CB3. After we learned that fact, we did submit in writing to the planning director, to Mr. Ayub, that we asked him to reverse his decision in the zoning letter and to treat our use similarly to the way that CSL was treated just 2 years prior. And that response was denied via email. And when our request to reverse the zoning letter was denied, we did continue on with our request to have the use added as a permitted use in CB3. At that time, the Planning Commission voted to recommend denial of our request, but multiple members indicated that we should come back as a special land use because the business would be of value to the city. And while this was all going on, while our application is pending, while the application to have our use added as a permitted use was pending, which apparently I think brought to light to the city the fact that CSL had been approved and permitted by right by the previous planner, the city then proposed on its own volition and adopted an ordinance that would make plasma donation centers a special land use, both in CB2 and CB3. And this council, as everyone's aware, approved that back in July. And then the ZBA, consistent with that decision, denied our request to be added as a list of permitted uses. And so then that led us to submitting our application here. And on September 1st, we were back before the Planning Commission, but this time on our special land use application. And as you all know, after a lengthy discussion and question and answer period, the Planning Commission voted 5-4, narrowly passing a motion to recommend denial of the special land use permit. And of a couple of the probably key votes that ended up turning to 5-4 recommending denial, frankly, their main concerns, it was a little surprising, had to do with the staffing of the facility and the certification of the phlebotomists. And they said that those issues kind of raised questions for them. And to the extent anyone has questions about that, we're fully prepared to address them. But my point was really more that this is a land use consideration, and the staffing numbers, receptionists versus people doing the examinations really wasn't one of their criteria. I didn't think we'd be addressing because it's not in the ordinance. But nonetheless, that pretty much brings us up to speed here tonight, where I'm going to ask in a moment for your approval of the special land use application, despite the narrow recommendation 5-4 vote from the Planning Commission for denial. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, in the staff report and in our application materials, there are 6 standards to be considered by this council for special land use approval. They were all examined in detail in our application and in the staff report. And as Mr. Ayub said, he himself has determined that our application meets all but one of the 6 special land use standards. That is to say that parking, traffic, landscaping, site plan layout, impacts on surrounding properties are all satisfied, but simply standard 4, which I have pulled into an indented quote here, was not satisfied. There's nothing in the staff report that discusses negative impacts or has any evidence specifically of negative impacts on surrounding properties. And the last 2 points I made a bit earlier, so I won't belabor them. If you could go to the next slide, and I will address the special land use, the master plan issue a little bit. While the staff did conclude that Octapharma's use doesn't meet the quote, the general objectives of the 2018 master plan, and in part maybe because the city has an understandable, albeit maybe unrealistic desire that a high-end restaurant or more typical commercial use will come in here. The reality is that our use is actually very consistent with the master plan's general objectives. And I've pulled out here just a few bullet points on the right that bring actual objectives from the master plan up before us. The first one is that it contemplates that this region shifts from an old economy to a new economy. And without reading the entire definition provided there, Octapharma meets this. It's provided there in the long form answer on the left, but as a high-tech company that combines its knowledge and technology and innovation into all their products and services, it's exactly the type of future-minded business that is contemplated by the master plan. And moreover, it's a commercial use. It brings a vital community service, 50 new jobs, and is a consistent source of supplemental income for community members. The second objective from the master plan that's furthered here is frankly the elimination of blight. The master plan has a lot of text dedicated to the concerns of the citizens of Westland, and as Mr. Ayub pointed out, and the issue that comes up several times throughout the master plan is the elimination of blight and the reoccupancy of vacant buildings, especially large vacant buildings, and especially large vacant buildings that are in highly prominent and visible areas. And that's exactly what Octapharma's use will do here. It'll eliminate a large vacant building on a highly visible intersection, furthering the master plan's goal of eliminating blight. And lastly, there was the last note there, was that this is not a property that's earmarked to become residential. It's not earmarked to become some PUD in the future. No, to the contrary, this property is future land use designated to be commercial. It's going to be the widest form of commercial uses, just as CB3 allows for the widest form of commercial uses allowed under the ordinance. So it is not as if it'll become a more restrictively zoned property in the future under the future land use designation. It will have a different title, but it will still be Westland's broadest commercial district, allowing the most intense commercial uses. You can go to the next slide, please. And this slide here, excuse me for 1 second while I take a drink that you can't see I'm doing. This lays out, it's a table from the master plan itself, and it lays out all of the zoning districts on the right-hand column and all of their future land use designations on the left-hand column. And as we've said, the CB3 is slotted to eventually become the community commercial district. Now, as under the city's staff's analysis of the special land use criteria as it pertains to the master plan, Octapharma's business will never be allowed at any location anywhere in the city of Westland. And I know that sounds a little extreme, but when you actually look at it logically, it is actually very much the case here. So to put it simply as possible, I kind of pulled these bullet points out. We're in the CB3. That allows the broadest use of commercial uses anywhere in the ordinance. And an ordinance has actually been adopted now saying that we are a valid special land use in this district. We're going to be this property will become community commercial. Also will be the broadest range of commercial uses anywhere in the city. So if we can't operate here on this CB3 solely because our future land use designation is community commercial, then that means we can't be anywhere on any CB3 property necessarily, and we can't be on any CB2 or CB1 property. And it eliminates literally every viable site within the city of Westland because we are is a commercial use, and we will not fit into the residential or the neighborhood or the office business district. And what that amounts to when you have a zoning ordinance that is either written or interpreted in this way, it amounts to what's called exclusionary zoning, which is frankly, it's an illegal zoning model, and it doesn't stand up on appeal under Michigan law. And you don't have to take that, from me as gospel as the attorney for the applicant. I understand that, but it was a concern that was also raised on the record by David Rappaport, who's an attorney and a member of both the Planning Commission and the ZBA. And before he voted to recommend approval, which he did, of the special land use, he said on the record on September 1st, and I quote, "I want to make sure we all understand there's a very legitimate concern for a claim of exclusionary zoning with regard to this issue," and close quote. So simply put, and to summarize Mr. Rappaport's point, a denial based on the staff's suggested interpretation of the ordinance would amount to exclusionary zoning because it effectively precludes Octapharma from ever operating on any zoned property here in the city of Westland, which they very much want to do. And then the last real slide that I have for us to look at tonight before we move forward. And again, I want to say that something, see, this is unfortunate. So on the right-hand side here, I actually have the letter on the slide that I sent over. Something gets lost in translation sometimes technologically here. So what I want to address here is, in addition to the very serious and frankly, I think kind of blatant concern about exclusionary zoning, I'm frankly also troubled by the fact that Octapharma was required to seek special land use approval here when its competitor just down the road, CSL Plasma, was treated so very differently when it sought approval from the city to operate its business in 2017. And I had a few different things on this slide to point out. On the right, I actually have the letter from the prior planning director dated December 20th of 2017, and where he confirms that CSL's plasma center, or their quote, blood plasma donation center, is a use permitted by right, close quote, and says the donation center was classified as an outpatient clinic. As you can see over on the left-hand part of the slide, outpatient clinics indeed are permitted by right, both in CB2 and in CB3 for that fact. So what we have here is in 2017, we have the city stating in writing that donation centers like this are permitted by right and classified as outpatient clinics. And we fast forward to 2020, when Octapharma seeks the same treatment as CSL to be permitted by right as an outpatient clinic, and is first told we don't fall into any use category and are thus a special land use. And when I pointed out how really arbitrary and in legal terms discriminatory it would be for the city to treat these essentially identical uses so differently, the city adopted an ordinance making plasma donation centers a special land use. So then we went down that road, and now we are told that we cannot meet the special land use criteria at this property because of its future land use designation, or at any CB3 location throughout the city. Now, well, I understand that the city staff defends its disparate treatment of these two companies by relying on the fact that the master plan was adopted in between in 2018. This doesn't explain how these companies were treated so differently. The master plan does not change how a plasma center would be classified. So you have in 2017 a city planner saying you are an outpatient clinic, you're permitted by right. You have in 2020 saying you don't fall into any category whatsoever, so you're a special land use. Now the master plan that's adopted in between those two dates would not impact at all how the city should view this use. It was already determined in writing in a formal zoning decision that we are an outpatient clinic and we're supposed to be permitted by right. So for that reason, I do, in addition to an exclusionary zoning concern, I have a very strong and troubled concern that we have an equal protection issue where two corporate citizens asking a city to interpret the same ordinance. You can say the master plan came in the middle, but they did not change the ordinance or the classifications of uses in CB3. We have kind of an arbitrary and capricious differential treatment of the two companies. So we go to the last slide, which is my closing slide. You know, and I hate to end on the negative notes, but I wanted to make it clear and at least make a record of the fact that we have really been down a lot of roads here trying to move this business into Westland. And I do believe that by right, we would be entitled to operate here, but even as a special land use, that the evidence that we've submitted into the record and raised on the record at the Planning Commission meetings here tonight show that we do satisfy those 6 special land use criteria, 5 of which the staff report agrees that we absolutely satisfy. And the only one which they don't is this general consistency with the objectives of the master plan, which again, if that interpretation is the basis for the decision, then we've been excluded. We've been exclusionary zoned, for lack of a better term, out of Westland. There will be no site for us to come in and really offer a valuable, beneficial service and business in Westland's community. So in closing, we've been through a lot with the city, and we appreciate all of the time and effort and consideration that the city and this council has put into our application. We want to bring this company into Westland to reoccupy this vacant property that sat there with a viable, internationally respected business and bring real jobs and real dollars to the local economy. We have Mr. Klisch on the phone who can answer any questions you could possibly have remaining about our operations or how the site will operate once it's up and running. But with that, I'm open up to any questions that the members have for myself or Mr. Klisch, and thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, thank you for the brief discussion. First, we'll talk to the maker. Do we have any discussion? Just a reminder, this is a motion to deny. Any discussion from the maker?
No.
Any discussion from the supporter?
Sure. Just a couple comments. And again, this is a motion to deny. I think there's a reason it's a special land use. That was a decision made for a lot of reasons. We're cleaning up the ordinances. We're moving forward with the master plan. I think everybody on council takes that very seriously. You can see tonight on our agenda, a moratorium for gasoline stations. So now at the next meeting, if somebody wants to do a gas station, they can't make the same argument that you're making. It doesn't hold up to me. So, a lot of people, I've seen comments and things like that saying that we should fill up the empty building just to fill it up. But I do think that's short-term thinking. This is the busiest corner in town, and I do believe we can do better as far as commercial or another type of business. I'll wait to see what the other council members have to say.
Thank you, Councilman Hertzberg. First up is Councilman McDermott.
Thank you, Council President. And I saw the city attorney potentially looking to speak on this as well. So I did have a question for him through the chair to the city attorney. The term exclusionary zoning was used quite a bit tonight. Can you explain that in its context to this specific situation, and what, if any, legal ramifications would face the city of Westland? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair. Before I get into that, I guess let me try to address the question I was trying to get out to make sure that we were set up right for this conversation. And I want to thank Attorney Voigt for his 26-minute presentation, and the new set of PowerPoints that were shown overlapped with, but were not entirely the same as the August 6th documentation in the package. So I want to make sure from Mr. Voigt that he feels that he's provided all the updated information to City Council.
Yeah, Mr. Fasone, the only thing I would add was that a copy of the actual letter from 2017 was part of the slide from the prior city planner. So I would submit that's part of the record, but I understand it didn't come through on the slide.
Okay, we'll note that also as part of the record. I think it's important that the applicant have certainly the procedural due process, and I think Attorney Voigt's acknowledging that he's had procedural due process for the applicant in this instance. going back to the question raised by the councilman in terms of things like exclusion, you heard theories thrown around about exclusionary zoning, disparate treatment, equal protection under the law. Those are all the things we lawyers have to throw out to try to convince people not only the value of our argument, but that there are cases behind it that mean different things. But it is not really possible in this situation to fully define these legal theories. That's obviously what courts refine. If we said never going to have anywhere, anyhow, this type of use, and I'm not talking about blood plasma, I'm talking about pick your use, mobile homes, then the argument can be made that maybe there's exclusionary zoning going on. And in this instance, part of what's challenging is you've heard arguments of exclusionary zoning, disparate treatment, equal protection, wrapped around not about this parcel at this time in this year, but sort of, well, if you look around big enough, maybe the argument can be made. Recognition that some things have changed, the updated 2018 master plan is required by state law. But again, you heard the argument. It really doesn't. His argument is that that doesn't make the difference. So exclusionary zoning is always a concern when dealing with zoning related issues or planning related issues. But it goes to the concept broadly, Councilman, that you are acting or have constricted by ordinance in a way that there's no way this use could ever land anywhere in the city.
Councilman McDermott, Attorney Fasson, are you good with that response, Councilman McDermott?
Absolutely. Thank you, Attorney Fasson. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any other discussion from the council? Councilwoman Green.
Yes, thank you. I had a question through the chair to the city attorney. When you said he would, in order for it to be exclusionary zoning, there would have to be an argument made that he could not essentially do business anywhere in the city. If I'm correct, and you, I think that was the last statement you made, but he actually did make that argument during his presentation. He stated that technically, with the exception of one clause being only the master plan, he meets all of the other hard requirements. And also he stated that due to whatever the circumstance were that he's being disqualified on, he would also essentially be disqualified in CB2 and CB1. So he did make that argument. So is your takeaway from what he's saying is that he has a way to do business in Westland? Because I think he made it clear that he couldn't.
Through the chair, what he was saying is his interpretation of how this council would react to any future special land use request at any other CB2 or 3 property you would deny. But what you have before you is this piece of property at this time with this proposal.
Right, I understand that, but I do believe that he made the argument that based on the stipulation or the specific terms of disqualification, he cannot do business in CB2 or CB1 now, even if he were to apply, is what I received from what he said. So, and before we vote, I want to understand if that's what he said. Is the petitioner still on the line? And if you could please, because as other council people have said, it's been I think we're all clear on most of it anyhow. If you can kind of limit it to as close to a yes or a no answer as possible, that would be wonderful.
To not knowing the exact question, my short answer is that yes, obviously I am talking about this property we're talking about today, and on a more global sense throughout the city. The question to be answered is, and it could be answered by City Attorney Fasson or it could be answered by Mr. Ayub, is that if we can't go into CB3 simply because of its future land use designation, Now, all CB3s have the same future land use designation. So immediately we're counted out of all CB3s. And then that's the most intense commercial district. So anything lesser than that, we're also discounted from CB2 or CB1. So if not CB3, then where? Which zoning district would we ever be allowed in? And that's a straightforward question, and I've never got a straightforward answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, through the chair to Mo, can you clarify when he stated that the ordinance changed for plasma centers? Did that ordinance change before or after they put their initial application in? Or application before they approached the city of Westland? Did the ordinance that we had at the time qualify them? And then they had already contacted the city of Westland, we changed it after we made contact with them? Or was our ordinance already in place before they ever contacted us? The revised ordinance is the one I'm asking about.
I understand the question. I don't want to answer it with a yes or no question because it complicates things, but just a quick timeline. They had requested to go at Rite Aid. I had noted to them, the zoning ordinance doesn't specifically call out blood plasma donation clinics, and I don't want to approve this on an administrative level. I think this should be reviewed at a public hearing by the council. And that's what I told Mr. Vogt. And then we got into this back and forth about Bruce approving CSL plasma before the newly adopted master plan, which changed things a little bit. So at that point, he had requested a use variance, which allows the zoning board to categorize something as an administrative approval, avoiding city council approval. And the zoning board turned it down. At the same time, we had ran a zoning ordinance amendment to actually define and classify blood plasma donation clinics in our zoning ordinance, which never existed before as special land uses. And you approved that several weeks ago. So his application for special land use came after you approved the ordinance for special land use of blood plasma donation clinics.
Right. Okay. So with that answer that you just gave, he applied for special land use after the first application. My question was, when he first contacted the city of Westland, that existing ordinance at that time, it allowed for what for them to do business there. And then we changed it after he came back with the planning commission recommended he come back and do a special land use app, and then we changed it.
No, there was nowhere in the zoning ordinance did it classify blood plasma donation clinics. It was up to the person in charge at the time, who was Bruce, to do whatever he wanted with it. And now I wanted to do it the right way, classify it in our zoning ordinance, put it in black and white. Now that it's in there as a special land use, Mr. Vogt is going through the special land use approval process. That's why he's here tonight.
No, I understand that, but you're still not answering my question. My concern is, if they contacted the city of Westland and everything in writing, whether it was you, Bruce, it still was under Mayor Wild. If everything in writing allowed them to proceed, and then they have a video and documentation that shows our planning department telling them to come back and do it a different way, and then the city goes back and changes the terms, that is where my concern is. Because if you change the terms after you already tell them no, and then you fix it to where the answer is going to for sure be no, because now we've changed the rules after the fact, that is my question. So I believe from your answer, they contacted us first, then we changed the ordinance after the fact. After whatever years, 2017, at some point after that, city council changed the ordinance. Is that correct?
Petitioners do have to contact us to initiate something.
No,
Yes.
right, and that's why I asked you just for a simple answer. Did they contact us first and then we changed the ordinance? Because that essentially, in my opinion, may change the argument. It's under the same mayor. And so
It was the zoning board and the city council, not the mayor, that changed the ordinance, just to clarify. And that's all I have to say on that topic. Thank you.
you're welcome. Actually, I didn't ask you for the extensive detail because you said it could get pretty tricky. If people just answer the questions and let a yes be a yes and a no be a no, we wouldn't have to do this dance. I simply asked you, did they contact us first and then we changed the rules, or were the rules set in stone and they came forward? That was a simple yes or no answer. And I'm not sure where your frustration comes from, or maybe I'm picking up on a slight whatever it is, but it's improper. So I'll move on. I did take a look at the, and this is relative to the vote before this vote happens, because I want to make sure I have a clear understanding, myself having extensive training in risk management and litigation and liability. This CB3 zoning district slide that was presented, it states that when Mo initially opened his presentation, he said, I know certain people would consider a plasma center being a medical office, but in his estimation, it's not. What matters is what the court of law will believe. And CB3 states that medical offices, outpatient center or outpatient clinics is appropriate in CB3, laboratories, medical and dental. So, and it also gives two or three other ones, several others that this qualifies for. So if I am having a problem understanding how you do not consider a plasma center, a medical center, a outpatient clinic, nor a laboratory. This is not personal to me. This is in terms of what our taxpayers may essentially have to do yet again because of our decisions. And I'm totally not clear. I'd also like to add, I watched that long zoning meeting, and I'd first like to thank the commissioners for being as extensive as they were. Secondly, I would like to thank this petitioner who is here tonight, because just because the 7 of us, or however many of us watched that meeting, have a clear understanding, the residents don't, and it's their money that we're gonna have to pay our attorney, who we're already paying almost $1 million a year. We're gonna have to pay him to defend us if we don't make the best legal decision. And it's also going to be yet again a question in terms of our understanding from a business standpoint. So I appreciate, while there was, in my opinion, a facetious statement about it being 26 minutes, we gave the grant writer, it seemed like 20 minutes. And I think it's important for residents to know exactly what is going on with a decision that may likely end us up in court unnecessarily or rightfully so. Before this vote goes forward, what was not discussed tonight is that this facility, what came out during the planning meeting was that they are going to make a $1.5 million, or I didn't hear it tonight, a $1.5 million renovation investment in this building that's been vacant for 2 years. Since 2018, the city said that they want that Rite Aid building to be turned into a higher end, or it's preferable for a higher end restaurant or whatever. The size of that Rite Aid building, in my opinion, is not conducive for a high-end restaurant. It's also set vacant for 2 years. They did a direct reach to CVS, Dollar Store, Family Dollar, and another direct contact. None of them took interest. We have not had one restaurant that has expressed interest in that corner. There was discussion in terms of there being 50 new jobs that is going to create in Westland, and also an estimated $2 million in salaries a year. They are not going to have a office full of entry-level workers. They are going to be livable wages paid at that location. This company is a national company, and they have done Rite Aid renovations in 30 states throughout the United States. There was a question at the Planning Commission about the type of clientele that may visit this plasma center. I think the fact that people will make stereotypical assumptions about people who opt to donate from their own bodies to possibly save the life of another, while we want people to donate organs or blood in case of an accident of a loved one, but then when it's a plasma center, you automatically assume that, oh my God, these people are going to go rummaging through the community, which is not factually based. There is no criminal or law enforcement data to prove or to even support a theory that a plasma center will bring crime to your community. It's totally improper and unfortunate for people to make that assumption. And again, it's no different than if someone were opting to do some sort of other medical donation to save a life. If that were a Red Cross a location, no one would frown at people going to donate blood. So I'm not sure why plasma is being looked at any differently. Another concern that I have in terms of the denial being specifically based on the master plan, a difference of what the preferred master plan is. We have things in our master plan right now that Westland, one, cannot afford to possibly ever put in our city unless we come into a huge amount of unanticipated money. Some of those things in the master plan will never arrive in the city of Westland. We also don't have any development interest at this time for many of those things in the master plan. So some of those things may never come to fruition for a lack of development interest or money. And to deny this and say that it's on a prime corner when this is a medical facility, and because we changed the rules after they came to the city of Westland, and like he said, we let somebody else in under the exact criteria that we are attempting to deny them for. I don't understand how we can. But you know what, we can easily say that because none of us are going to personally pay for the lawsuit if we have one. And I'm not scared of lawsuits, but this to me, I actually tend to, I think he has a valid point. And I also believe that when he said they are being treated differently from a business standpoint, they absolutely are. And I have told these officials in Westland, from the mayor to city council, when you treat people differently, whether in a professional setting, when you exercise any type of variance or you deviate from treatment from one person to the next or one business for whatever reason, you always cause a potential for liability. And hopefully that is not something that the city of Westland will end up learning the hard way. But based on what has been happening in this city, I believe we will. I absolutely believe that we will. And I will say that the letter, the callers who placed objection, one caller who had objection to this, or not a call, I don't even know if it was a call or a letter. One person had, it was a next door or a neighboring flower owner, florist shop. The concern was possibility of run over traffic onto, which will make it kind of congested for them, which would not actually be the case. There are 74 parking spaces in that lot. And I actually would, here's what I'm going to pay close attention to. And whoever this petitioner is, I encourage you to pay close attention to it too. If city council denies this, I encourage you to keep an eye on whether that lot, that prime corner that is stated that it doesn't meet our master plan, or we want a higher end restaurant, keep an eye on whether that corner becomes a marijuana facility, because there has been lots of discussion, alarming rumors, and contact that I have received from contractors who are involved with these marijuana contracts, being told that they have already received promises from city officials, who's going to get it, the guarantees. all types of questionable activities, not at other locations as well. So I am not stating that that is the case. But if that city council denies that and it happens to turn into a marijuana location, I think that you might have there might be more discussion to be had. So for the reason that I believe this decision is going to put us in a position of unnecessary liability, whether and I also believe that we should consider the totality of this vote before we take it tonight, because obviously we have not done that. And Attorney Falzone stated that an argument would have to be made that he can't do business in another area of the city, and he sat on his presentation and he said it. So if we force this through, we're basically forcing the citizens into a lawsuit without having all of the facts. One attorney, which of course, Attorney Falzone is extremely respected. We are not above getting a secondary legal opinion in the city of Westland. There's nothing stopping us from getting a secondary opinion to make sure that if and when we vote no, our residents are protected, and this company who brings this suit will be liable for all of our legal fees, instead of us looking at a necessary lawsuit, unnecessary lawsuit. So for that, the reasons that I expressed, I am not going to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hertzberg.
Thanks. So just a quick comment to the beginning comments from Councilwoman Green. I understand, some of the points you brought up about the process. Those are good questions. You have concerns with liability. I just feel like that's not going to be the case. There's no ordinance blocking this development. He's here now with his proposal. That's the bottom line, and it's a council decision. The building has been empty for a couple of years. We've had buildings be empty longer. The problem is it's for lease. It's not for sale. If you have enough money to open up a business in that size of a building, you're going to buy it. You're not going to lease it. So, and that's not our business anyhow. But I just wanted to clarify, because some of the points you were making through the chair to the city attorney, the petitioner mentioned that if not here at this location, then where? Is it true that no matter where he wants to go, it's going to come forward as a special land use?
Yes, through the chair. It's going to be a council decision on special land use. That's right. That's what you did in the ordinance, is to make sure that it came to you.
I think there was some confusion on that ordinance by him reading it as he can't go anywhere, but it's going to come as a special land use and anywhere he wants to put this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hertzberg. Is there any other discussion? All right, reminder, this is a motion to deny. Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
No.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes. New business, item 3, approval of proposed rezoning OB and R5 to CBN 3 and MRR. This is the former Eloise property, north side of Michigan Avenue between Henry Ruff and Merriman, Planning Department number 2241A. Planning Commission recommends approval, and if approved, directs the city attorney to draft the necessary ordinance amendment.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Godbout. Is there any
Support Rutkowski.
Support by Councilman Markowski. Mo?
Okay, I'll be really quick with this one. This came to us previously for the land division. So the subject site here is the site of the former Eloise Psychiatric Hospital, located on the north side of Michigan Avenue, just west of Henry Ruff there on your screen. The existing parcel is zoned R5 and OB. That's our office business district. and was recently divided into 5 separate parcels looking similar to this on your screen. The petitioner is requesting to rezone the parcels from R5 and OB to these categories also listed on your screen in order to move this through as a mixed-use development. This parcel in the back is the only deferring parcel from the CB3 district. This is our mid-rise residential district. His hope is to build a senior living facility there with access from Henry Ruff, dedicated access from Henry Ruff through this easement back here. The zoning and the size details are listed in your backup. That's really all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mo. Give me my other screen back. There we go. Very good. Do we have any discussion with Councilman Godbout?
No.
Anything from Councilwoman Rakowski?
No.
All right, any other discussion from the council? Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
yes,
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business item 4, approval of proposed rezoning from OB office business to I1 light industrial, 1651 South Benoit, north of Palmer. Planning Department number 2242. The Planning Commission recommends denial of the proposed rezoning.
Motion for denial, Rutkowski.
Support Godbout.
All right, this is a motion for denial from Councilman Rakowski, supported from Councilman Godbout. Mo, can you walk us through that one?
Yes, thank you, Council President. The subject property here is on your screen. It's the site of a vacant medical office building located on the north side of Palmer, south or east of Vinoy. Sorry about that. The parcel is zoned OB, that's our office business district, and is approximately 1.5 acres in size. The property was recently purchased by the petitioners, 2 gentlemen who are requesting to rezone the property to I1 light industrial in order to use the property as a contractor storage facility / yard. Contractor storage yards and facilities are permitted and listed in the zoning ordinance in the industrial zoning classification. The petitioners will be splitting the building into 2 separate units and dividing and using it for their 2 separate industrial type businesses. The first being a hard surface flooring business that he's going to be storing hardwood flooring materials and installation equipment on the site, along with vans in the parking lot that are associated with that business. Employees will be visiting the site to obtain the van and materials and equipment, and will then go to the job site and return, pick up their cars, drop off the van and materials. Similar operation for the second business, but that is a ventilation cleaning company. And that one will include vans and a large box truck, from what I was told. Specific equipment includes filters, brushes, cleaning solutions, and other materials for ventilation cleaning. The 2018 City of Westland Master Plan future land use designation for this property is neighborhood commercial / office services. The proposed rezoning to industrial is not compatible with the future land use designation that I just mentioned. Really quickly, from a staff analysis summary point of view, the property is located in a shopping area, a small shopping area right at the corner, within close proximity to various single family and multifamily residential land uses. There are no industrial zoning districts or even land uses in the immediate area, or rather in the general area, even if you were to blow this up a little bit from an aerial perspective. So when rezoning a property, I just wanted you to know this, you probably do, to industrial, you not only approve the use that's in front of you, but you also open up the property to be used by a variety of industrial uses, some of which might not even come before you as special land uses. Some I will have to approve administratively. and not hold a public hearing or anything like that. So this allows for a variety of uses, like I said, to operate at the site in the future if these storage facilities or contractors' yards were ever to go away. And those future uses are not likely to be compatible with the surrounding residential and light commercial uses. And finally, introducing uses not consistent or compatible with the surrounding area, especially industrial uses, leads to a variety of negative impacts, creating a burden on land suitability of adjacent properties that had the expectation of existing in commercial area or residential areas, environmental concerns, traffic impacts, once heavy vehicles and trucks are introduced on a regular basis, causing unanticipated infrastructure issues and lowering the overall aesthetics of the area. The Planning Commission and administration are recommending denial to you, the City Council. Thank you. You're muted, Council President.
Can you hear me now? Very good. Do you have any discussion from Councilwoman Rakowski?
No, thank you.
Any discussion from Councilman Godbout?
Yes, I just wanted to state that I agree with Mo. This rezoning to an industrial is out of place for the area, number one. There are no other industrial uses. It's commercial, residential in that area. And changing the zoning on this, as was indicated by our planning director, particularly to an I-1, would allow it for a potential marijuana use in that facility, even though it would be closer than 250 feet from a residential property. So for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest one that it's really not compatible with that area, I'm voting to deny the rezoning.
Thank you. Councilman Hertzberg?
Thank you, Council President. I'm not sure where I stand yet. You know, there's a good example of this at Warren and Merriman, where there's a flooring and a storage facility that went into an old commercial center, and we haven't had any issues with that. You know, they put up a fence and they do their business, and it's actually a positive impact on the neighborhood. They finally cleaned up that. Sorry, that's at Ann Arbor Trail in Merriman. They've cleaned up the corner, and I haven't gotten any complaints. Actually, residents over there were waiting for years to get that corner cleaned up. So through the chair to Mo, has there been any indication from these petitioners that they want to do something else besides what they said? Or was there any talk of splitting the property into two parcels? Or is there anything that would stop a marijuana facility from going in there?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I completely forgot that at least one of the petitioners is on the call. So I think it would be worth, if you guys are on the fence, listening to him or her or both of them. In terms of splitting it, well, it's industrial, so we don't have any limitations on industrial in terms of separation distance. It's with the exception of a school. So I think this site would qualify regardless of what they did. But I don't know, maybe that's irrelevant at this time. But
Are we going to hear from the petitioners?
Yep, Mo, who's the petitioner?
there is an Ejon, E-J-O-N. I recognize that name, and there's.
All right. John, that's what I've got to work with here. Do you have anything to offer to the council?
Ejon, you're muted.
Yep, you're currently muted. So Ejon, are you there? Yeah, talking's been permitted. He's still muted, Mo. So I don't know what to do here. Councilman Hertzberg, it's still your floor. Do you have any other questions or any other comments?
I mean, it's tough to make a decision without hearing from the petitioner. I mean, this is kind of a unique circumstance where I do see that the business that what's written in our packet, I think that would be fine for the spot, but there's the question of the what if. So.
Okay. Is there any other discussion from the council? All right, I'll offer my comments. Councilman Hersberg, you brought up that the CSW flooring on Ann Arbor Trail and Merriman. I remember that. I actually voted no, I think, on their fence, but I think that's not a bad deal. What I worry about really is, this is my personal opinion, when we rezone to industrial, like Councilman Godbout said. So they come in there, not a big deal for right now, but 2 years from now, there's an awful lot of permitted uses in industrial zoning, and you'd have a little postage stamp of industrial zoning right there in really what's neighborhood and residential and small commercial area. And all the things they'd be allowed to do that they're just permitted, Mo would have to administratively approve them. I would take issue with that. So that's why I will be supporting the motion to deny. So I wanted to offer that in. So with that, we'll go to roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
This is on the motion to deny?
yes.
Correct.
No.
Councilman Hersberg,
No.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
yes,
Councilwoman Rakowski,
yes,
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes. New business, item 5. Approval of acquisition of vacant parcel number 007010602-006, north side of Warren, east of Cowan, zoned OB office business. The Property Disposition Committee recommends acquiring the property at no cost and authorizes the mayor and city attorney to sign the closing documents related to the acquisition.
So move, Londo.
support Rakowski.
There's a motion by Councilman Londell, supported by Councilman Rakowski. I saw other mouths moving, but those are the ones that came through audio, so that's what we'll go with today. Mo, can you walk through that one, please?
Yeah, let me just share my screen a bit real quick, just so I can show you what's going on here. This is the site of the historical Perrinville school site. This is just a vacant parcel to the east. The owners are currently paying a few $100s in taxes per year. I hope I have the right one up there. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. And he had reached out to me. It's 25,000 square feet. He had reached out to me before the pandemic started to ask if the city would be interested. The Property Disposition Committee met a couple times. We ironed some things out in the first meeting, and then he provided all the paperwork to us. So he's got the clear to go with this. The Property Disposition Committee expressed interest in potentially turning this into a park. Councilman Hersberg had stated earlier he has interest in a dog park. We tossed the idea around about parking for the school site, so we are interested in picking it up and combining it with the former school site for some sort of use down the road.
All right, is there any discussion from Councilman Londo?
Thanks.
Anything from Councilman Rakowski?
Yeah, good evening. I'm in support of us acquiring this property. It's kind of an odd shaped property to begin with, and I know I would enjoy seeing it cleaned up. It's become quite overgrown. It might add some appeal to our Perrinville site there. And it was stated, I believe, by Mo that Councilman Hersberg possibly with the dog park. And I think adding some green space, especially in that area, it's so congested with traffic, but I think a green space would be very nice to see there.
All right, is there any other discussion from the council? Councilman Hersberg.
Thank you, Council President. I'll also be in support of acquiring the land. I was actually under the impression that the city already had acquired the land. I think that's based off my last conversation with former planning director Bruce Thompson. So it is interesting if you pull up the map. Just a quick discussion here on this. There's power lines that go straight down at an angle, kind of down the middle of the property. Have we looked at being able to move those down to the road, to bury them, to do whatever? Other than that, yes, I did mention a dog park. There's some long-term residents in those apartments and the neighborhood. They use it already for their dogs. Any time of day you drive by there, you're going to see somebody out there with a dog. So I think it just fits you know, but if we do move those power lines, I will be interested to see how this property line changes and if we would be able to do any commercial or anything like that down the road. I know the historical committee, they're going to be using the school for some event space coming up soon. And yeah, just interesting on this one. And then through the chair to the administration, if we can get a list of all the city-owned properties sent over to council, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Councilman McDermott.
Thank you, Council President. Just, I guess, real quick through the chair to Mo. Given that that property does have the power lines that run centrally through it, is that an issue if they were to get buried in the future that the city would work with DTE on that, or is that something that's totally on DTE's accord?
Well, DTE requires that whoever it wants to bury cables to pay for it. So that's a little bit tricky because these cables run throughout the entire east-west segment of Warren, through by Lutheran High, I think even. So let me show you what I'm talking about real quick. It'll just take a second.
Go ahead, Mo.
So if you can, so you see these power lines right here, they actually run the entire length of what is Cowan, actually. I'm sorry, not Warren. So they jog off here and then they wrap around here. So there would need to be some work there. I don't know if it'd be financially or fiscally responsible to do it, but it could be done, yes, and we would have to pay for it.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? Councilman Hersberg. Councilman Hersberg.
Yeah, just one last quick comment. I think the reason that I'd have to look at an old map, but I think Warren Road used to go straight through here quite a few years ago. So it's an interesting property again. Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, just I'll for mine. So if you look at that lot, that actually, those are primary lines that actually go right through that, right on the north side of the lot that's coming to us. That's big utility easement. So yeah, I deal with DTE a lot about replacing poles. They're happy to do it, and they're happy to charge you an astronomical amount of money. I'm here to tell you, it's usually about $8,000 to $10,000 for a standard 40-foot residential pole. I don't even want to think of what's going to cost to do primary lines to replace them, bury them, go underground, and come back up. So yeah, I'd love them to be in the ground, but I'm here to tell you that you'll get sticker shock. You'll grab your heart, I'm sure, when you see that bill. So maybe we just put signs up and say, "Hey, kids, stay away from the power lines." But we can talk about that in the future. I think as far as us acquiring the property for our discussion today, I think that's what we're here for. So roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. New business, item 6. Approval of sale of city-owned land. Parcel number 840207600006, north side of Hanover between Admiral and Inkster. This vacant parcel would go to the adjacent homeowner. Property Disposition Committee recommends the sale of this city-owned property to Henry Wood, the adjacent property homeowner, for the sum of $3,000 with the condition that the lot be combined with Mr. Wood's lot. And if approved, authorizes the mayor and city clerk to sign the closing documents related to the sale of this property.
Is there a motion?
So move, Londo.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Londo, and I heard Councilman McDermott up there, so we'll give you the support on that one. I think that one also is from Mo. So Mo?
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to mention that Tom from the previous Cowan property is on the phone. So if he wants to leave, I think he's fine, but didn't want to hold him up. Also, we have Henry Wood on the line as well. But let me just briefly describe what's going on here. So Mr. Henry Wood owns the home and property located right here where my cursor is. We purchased this property using CDBG dollars from the Wayne County foreclosure list. and demoed the home there. And we have about, I think, actually there wasn't a home on this property. So we used 1,100 and some change in CDBG funds to pick up this property, vacant property, from the Wayne County foreclosure process. And we've been sitting on it for a couple of years. It's 70 feet wide, 315 feet deep, and approximately 22,000 square feet. It is buildable. However, at the Property Disposition Committee, it was discussed that this area of land is in, or this area rather, is in the area that floods from, I forget what, the Ecorse Creek neighborhood, I think. So in discussions with Henry Wood, and as a result of that case there, Mr. Woods just offered city $3,000 to purchase the property and combine it with his parcel. He does not intend to build anything on it, just wants to use it as a side yard. So minus the 1,100 will go to the CDBG fund, and the remainder would go to the general fund. So we are recommending that this be sold to Mr. Wood. Thank you. Sorry, that was a little bit sloppy there.
All right, Mr. Wood, did you have anything else to add to that? Let me see if I can find you if you're on the call. There we are. Allowed, I'm gonna say a Terry Wood. So you'll have to unmute your phone. There you are. You should be unmuted. Do you have anything you want to add to the council?
I've lived here for 25 years and I've taken care of the lot for almost 20 of it. And and I'd like to have it.
Well, that's a good enough reason for me too, but we'll see if there's any other discussion. So we'll ask first, Councilman Londo, do you have anything to, any discussion?
No, thank you. I'll be in support.
Councilman McDermott, do you have any discussion?
No, thank you. I will also be in support.
Okay, rest of the council, is there any discussion? All right, roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hersberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Mr. Wood, you just bought yourself some land.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, have a good evening, sir.
You too.
New business, item 7, confirmation of appointment of Cleveland Anderson as alternate member to the Westland Board of Review for a 3-year term with the term to expire September 21, 2023.
So move. Londo.
Support Hersberg.
Motion by Councilman Londell, supported by Councilman Hersberg. MJ, do you have anything to add, or should I ask Mr. Anderson?
We can turn that. Thanks, Council President. We have Jen, the assessor, on the call tonight, so she can answer any questions that council may have also. Thank you.
Evening, Council. As stated in the reading of the agenda item, this is a approval for the confirmation of Mr. Cleveland Anderson to our annual March border, our border review. Our most probably popular one is March, but it is for an alternate position. We do currently have 3 regular members on the board and 1 existing alternate. Our charter does allow us for a second alternate, so this would be to fill our existing border review to make sure that we do not have any issues in the future with reaching a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, I've activated your talking privileges. Do you have anything you want to add to the council?
I would just like to thank the council for this opportunity. I've been in Westland for a few years now, and I have to say that I'm excited. This is something new for me, and I'm going to make sure that I make the best of this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Well, we'll see what everybody says, but I've got a good feeling about this one. So, Councilman Londo, do you have any discussion?
Just a comment. I just want to thank Mr. Anderson for stepping forward to serve, and I'll be in support of it.
Councilman Hersberg, do you have any discussion?
Oh, sure. I didn't have my hand up, but yeah, thanks for getting involved. And we like it when the younger folks start getting on some of these boards and commissions. And the mayor sent out an email, I think, earlier this week, or I think it was today, actually, that we're trying to get people from all age groups to participate in these boards. So thanks for getting involved. Good luck. If you have any issues, feel free to reach out to council.
All right. Any other discussion from the council? Okay, roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
yes,
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Mr. Anderson. We look forward to you serving on the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you again, council, council president. I appreciate it. And to all the council, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
New business item 8, approval of voucher.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Hertzberg,
Support.
support by Councilman Rakowski. Councilman Hertzberg or Councilman Rakowski, do you have any discussion on the vouchers?
No discussion at this time. Thank you.
And for me either. Thank you.
Roll call.
Councilman Godbout,
Yes.
Councilwoman Green,
Yes.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Councilman Londo,
Yes.
Councilman McDermott,
yes,
Councilwoman Rakowski,
Yes.
President Hart.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, now we move into comments from the public. Everyone speaking before the council should do so in a civil manner. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, vulgar language, disruptive outbursts, threats, racial slurs, or other conduct that interferes with the orderly conduct of the business meeting. Personal attacks on council members, the administration, city staff, other speakers, or members of the public will not be tolerated. The clock will start upon the first words of the speaker and will not stop while the speaker is recognized from the floor. You'll have 3 minutes. I have first phone number ending in 017. 017.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can.
Richard Graham from Move Westland Forward, lives in Westland. Thank you, Council President Hart, for giving me a chance to speak. Good evening, Council. Deputy Mayor Reddy. I guess Mayor Wild is again absent tonight, but disappointing over the last week. We've seen Office Max, another business is going to close. I went to the DPS yard to drop off some recycling. Saw our trash trucks that the citizens purchased on display. Looks like they're up for sale. Looks like the city is trying to sell them in the next bid package or included in the bid package. The citizens paid millions and millions for those trucks. What was really sad is about half of them looked like they were on 3 wheels instead of 4. Really poorly maintained, but yet the city charged us taxpayers a full $1 million, and there's about an extra $1 million sitting there. But those trucks look in sad shape. Really sad was hearing that our library director looks like he's going to be resigning. I mean, he was really a breath of fresh air, especially coming off the last director and the previous board appointed by Mayor Wild when the professional women were fired. So really sad to hear that it looks like the library director will be resigning. Was at a coffee hour for city council, 3 of the members, because there can only be 3 basically on Saturday. It was really terrible to hear Councilman Godbout reference a fellow council person, in this case a woman, which we believe to be, many of us in the audience believe to be Councilwoman Green. He went on and on and on, really being rather mean, not very compassionate, really almost like attacking her character, attacking her position on council. Just sad what he did on Saturday. Regarding the plasma center, I guess it is what it is. It's one of our most busiest intersections, but it's been vacant for 2 years. I doubt highly we're going to get a high-end restaurant there, but I guess it is what it is. What was really exciting was to see Mayor Wild on the first edition of The Rock, which is the Plymouth Lifestyle and Dining magazine. He was right there front and center on that magazine, eating at probably a really high-end restaurant in downtown Plymouth. So well done, Mayor Wild, for getting that publicity. That's it for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and everybody have a great night.
Next, I have, hold on, reset. Next, I have Mr. Edward Pruitt.
Hello, this is Pastor Edward Pruitt. I come before you for two reasons. Number one, reflecting on last council meeting where Mr. Jim Hart had the moment of time to speak about respect, and those folks who are in line with him all over video disrespecting another council member. That is sad and should be something that you're willing to reprimand him about as well, Mr. Hart. Secondly, I want to speak on whistleblowers. The great thing about the whistleblower law, it came into place to protect those who want to speak out about corruption, misuse of funds, and it showcased that some of these folks who are alone speaking out, that there's truth behind what's going on. I'm very concerned with the state of affairs in Westland. The reason I'm concerned about the state of affairs is it seems like the government is okay with frivolously spending the taxpayers' money or putting them in a position where they would have to defend lawsuits. This is not just now, it's other occasions as well. And while I can say there is a racism issue in the city of Westland, specifically the government of Westland, I am concerned that we do not have the right people in place. So there is an election coming up. No, I'm not talking about November. I'm talking about next year. So next year, I'm calling on all citizens to really look at who is calling out what and all the other council people standing against them. It's consistent. And we need to understand what is our elected officials are doing and what they're doing with our money. So go ahead, keep counting my time down, Mr. Hart, but understand the people are looking and we're calling for the people to put the right people in place, and we have a year. We're going to do it.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Ashley Stevens.
Hello. I know I'm always here and I'm always here to talk about equality. And I did want to take a second to thank Council Member Herzberg for just making sure that our nursing homes and adult daycares are safe. That's just really near and dear to me. We all have elderly people out there that we love, and they do deserve respect and care. So just thank you for that. Also, I'm not sure who to ask this question to, maybe Deputy Mayor Reddy. Where are we with racism as a public health crisis? What progress has Mayor Wild made? If maybe anyone else on the council could answer, where are we? Like, I haven't heard anything on it. Do you need any community help? Also, is there any way or anywhere I can follow for updates to make sure that this is still progressing? So if anyone could answer that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Council President, I was named. If I could respond briefly.
You may.
So thank you, Ashley, for the comments. I really appreciate that regarding the resolutions. And then just to answer your question, the mayor did send out an email, and I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe he committed to filling that board by November 1st. And he followed up with a commitment to fill all vacant boards and vacant seats through the end of the year. So that's really the update I have. That's really the administration looking at it, implementing it, and filling that board. So he did say by November 1st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next I have Kimberly Rose. I Let me try that again. There we are. Kimberly Rose, are you there?
Yes, evening rather. Good evening, council. My name is actually Kimberly May, and I am a 20-year resident of Westland. My parents are also Westland residents, and my son attends Wayne Westland Community Schools. I am running for Wayne Westland Board, and as an educator, I was excited to hear the information shared by Representative Kevin Coleman regarding school aid funding not being cut, and Wayne Westland schools are able to remain whole. This is a great start for our students. Also, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Cleveland Anderson for his appointment as an alternate member to the Board of Review. It is refreshing to see more people getting involved. And I am also planning to apply to be a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. So I am very excited about the work that's taking place within the city of Westland. Thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Kimberly May.
Thank you, Kimberly May. No. Next, we have Deanna Adams Stachow. Deanna, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And good evening, council. Just a remark in regard to finances. And I believe that the council is very diligent in regards to publicizing their finances, putting it in writing, and any disclosures that are necessary are always out there for the general population to see. So any kind of negative remarks made in regards to that, I think it is really very unjust. And the insinuations of wrongdoing of any sort or implications is, really has to stop, because this is horrible for because there's an issue going on that certain people really want to take and put down the council. And I truly feel that they're doing the best job that they can. And also I want to make a comment too. I too was at the coffee hour, and the council people did a very good job. They answered questions. It was quite lengthy and very well attended. And I think that anytime subjects come up in regards to what they have to respond because they're being asked a question. So whether you like the answer or not is entirely, your choice. But just they state the truth, and that's the main thing. So thank you, council, for giving me this time, and thank you for all your hard work as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. There. All right. There's no more hands raised. We'll move over to comments from the administration. MJ?
Thank you, Council President. Just to want to reiterate what Lisa Nosarini was saying earlier with the grants. We won't go over her great speech that she gave on it, but the grant money really is coming in. It's a good thing for the city of Westland. Normally we're used to getting tens of thousands, and at this point we're getting millions. So those are big numbers. The team, finance team, led by Steve Smith and them, are doing a great job with Lisa, and we like to have them continue their hard work and keep receiving the grant money that we're getting. And also, just on the DEA board that was mentioned, the mayor did send an email to council that was stated, and his goal is to fill that by October 1st, and then fill the remaining of our boards and commissions by the end of this year. And also, they're going to be available on the website. It's going to be in the newspaper, what we're doing for the boards and commissions on opportunities for people to sign up for those too. So if we can have council reach out to the folks that they know and steer the folks to try to join these boards and commissions. Again, we'll have the DIA board filled by October 1st, and then the rest of the boards and commissions we'd like to fill by the end of the year. So appreciate your time tonight, council, and have a good evening. Thank you.
MJ, just an opportunity. I believe the mayor's email said November 1st.
I'm sorry, excuse me. No, November 1st, right? I read my notes wrong. Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to fix that real quick. So
I appreciate you checking me. Thank you.
No problem. Any input from the city attorney today?
Yes, thanks through the chair. I think this is primarily for the citizens to understand why certain comments are made by the city attorney during presentations. And in particular here, it was when talking about the special land use. I think it was important to get out, that's what I was attempting to do, is that the applicant's attorney, who's a experienced attorney, had ample time. In this instance, he used 26 minutes. He had 18 slides, which were in addition to the 50 some pages in your packet. So what was important to get was procedural due process cleared, that the attorney himself acknowledged that he had adequate time and adequate opportunity to submit all the information he wanted city council to have, even if it was more than and different than what was reviewed by the planning commission. So that's what those discussions are about. It's not being facetious. It's not putting down the applicant. It's not making fun of the other attorney. It's trying to set up properly for the city that in this instance, procedural due process was held and that all the information was before city council, so that city council could make an informed decision. Thank you.
All right, well, with that, we'll move to comments from the council. Start tonight with Councilwoman Green.
Thank you. I'd like to start by informing the community that I have the information well, first of all, as we all know, the general election is coming. Our absentee ballots are scheduled to go in the mail September 24th or 4th. So that is actually this week. Absentee ballots will begin to start going out. The November general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, has established a new website, which I briefly spoke about at the last meeting. You can use this website that she established relative to your vote to do several things. So those being verify if you're registered to vote. You can verify what your election polling day location is. You can verify if your application for an absentee ballot was received by the clerk's office. You can also verify if your absentee ballot was returned and has been received by the clerk's office. And you can confirm the closest absentee ballot drop box location to your home if you're unable to put the ballot in the mail or to come to City Hall, again, due to what has been what is being anticipated as potential voter suppression efforts and or potentially mail delays. It is being recommended that people return their absentee ballots to the clerk's office as soon as you get them. Of course, bringing them in person and dropping them off would be best, but if you can place them, if you're planning to place them in the mail, please do not wait weeks before the election, because we have no idea of knowing what the mail system will be like as we get closer to the middle of October to November 3rd. So the website is M like Matthew, V like Victor, I like Igloo, C like Charles.sos.mi.us/voter/index. Again, mvic.sos.state.mi.us/voter/index. Next, I just would like to first thank the residents of Westland for allowing me to serve in this capacity. Sometimes we get in the process of doing our jobs for the community, and sometimes we have really great days, and then other times we have days that require a bit more activity on our parts to successfully achieve. So I just want to take a moment to just thank the residents of Westland for electing me to this seat and allowing me to serve as your representative. This is definitely a privilege that I do not take lightly, and I will continue to do so to the best of my ability. Next, there was a statement made at the previous council meeting that was made during the closing comments. And so I have been elected as a politician, but those of you who know me know that I do not fit the cookie cutter mold of what politicians do, how they act, or even how they speak. I am very proud to be independent minded. And so there was something said at one of the last council meetings, and I would just like to speak to you as your neighbor to implore you not to allow yourself to become distracted as a voter, as an informed citizen, as somebody attending our meetings. What was stated, I believe, was something that is normally stated to distract people from the matter at hand and pull on your heartstrings. So there was a statement by the mayor in terms of personal attacks. And I believe that a personal attack is calling someone names. That's a personal attack. Or intentionally lying on them or about their actions to try and make them look bad. That is an attack. Asking important questions about the details of city contracts and what is being done with taxpayers' dollars is not an attack. Asking why taxpayers, Westland taxpayers, are paying the overhead expenses for our trash company, the trash company that we use to pull our trash. We currently pay his overhead. Westland residents pay for all the gas in his trucks, the trucks that his company drives. We bought all the trucks. We pay for the insurance on all of those trucks. We pay for the repairs on those trucks. And then we turn around and pay him to pull our trash. Asking questions about those type of things, that's not an attack. Asking why our Westland police chief was allowed to retire after 25 years on the job on a Friday afternoon and authorized to start banking his retirement payments and then rehired on a Monday morning as our brand new police chief who receives a similar benefits package to what he was receiving prior to retirement. And he also receives a six-figure salary as our brand new police chief. That's not a personal attack. That is a relative question. Asking why we have certain contractors who the city or city council and other elected officials receive campaign donations from, contractors who city council approves 33% contract rate increases year over year for this contractor and locks them into a long-term contract and then refuses to put a clause in the contract allowing the city to renegotiate or terminate the contract if our expenses take a dive for the worst, which they did with COVID-19. Asking why you would refuse to protect the city financially, or why we would give city employees $40,000 salary increases while we have 70 employees on city furlough. That's not an attack. That is a relative question. Asking why someone with no relative experience business-wise as it relates to a senior executive position is put in a number 2 deputy executive clerk seat, given an extremely large salary raise, and then the position, the job is refused. There is a refusal to not only do a transparent interview process, but also to open the job up to potentially qualified city employees and also the public. Asking why we would promote someone to the number 2 seat that is over our electoral process when this person had no experience whatsoever above entry level positions. That is not an attack. So I say all that to say that there are certain things that normally politicians will do to distract you. Because if I can get you looking on the opposite side of the room, you're paying no attention to what I'm over here doing with your tax dollars, what I may be entering into that you're on the hook for, and so on and so forth. So do not allow yourself to be distracted, because if we can get you to feel sorry for us, by the time you figure out what a politician is actually doing with your tax dollars, it could be too late. So I just wanted to clarify what an attack is and what valid questions are, because those statements continue to be said anytime you ask questions. If you're not automatically on board to rubber stamp, sometimes it's looked at as an attack. And I just wanted to clarify that it's actually not. I also wanted to thank the grant writer, Lisa Norserini, and her group for the announcement that she made and the hard work that she and others put into bringing the grant monies home to the city of Westland and our residents. So thank you. Finally, the coffee hour that was referenced over the weekend, there was a video, actually several videos on social media, and I received, I would say no less than probably roughly 15 calls, texts, emails from concerned residents regarding what was stated at the meeting, which again, you know, in politics, people say whatever, you know, they're going to say. You have to pretty much have thick skin if somebody just personally doesn't like you. But the issue that was stated at one of the issues that was stated that actually caused residents to question things that were alleged. One of them was that Councilman, well, first of all, the coffee hours was given by Councilman Godbow, Councilman McDermott, Councilman Hertzberg, and then State Representative Kevin Coleman stood in the front of the area with them. During that time, Councilman Godbow announced to whomever he was speaking to that I called them names, which was completely false. As a professional, a woman, and a child of God, I don't, and a middle-aged adult, I don't operate like that. So that was a complete false statement. I have never called him a name or any of them a name. I ask questions, but I don't do so in a way that it is name calling. So that statement is very alarming, because anyone who would carry themselves in that fashion should actually consider whether or not they are qualified to represent other people. And so, you know, of course, I was concerned because I know that statement is actually not true. And I have no problem with people making true statements. But when a colleague goes out of their way to tell a lie, if you have to lie to sway the opinion of the community, then you should actually consider whether or not you're doing the best thing for our city. So I wanted to clarify for the community that the statement that was made in terms of me calling any of them names was completely false. And I would never behave like that. So again, had I not been contacted by a storm of residents and had a chance to view the video myself, I more than likely would have brushed it off, but my integrity was actually called into question due to those lies. And then another statement that was actually intentionally a lie as well came from Arthur Warren, who, if anybody who follows Westland politics, you all know who Arthur Warren is, and you probably have an opinion on the level of his integrity. But he stated during that coffee hour that the resolution for racism that people called to the city of, or called into our meetings and presented themselves as Westland residents, and basically that a farce was put on, and that city council was forced into supporting something being the resolution to declare racism a public health crisis. They were forced into supporting it because they were tricked. At no time did any of the councilmen who were present address that statement. And quite frankly, most of them actually were in opposition, honestly, in opposition with it. But Arthur Warren, I wanted to clarify for the community, because that video, between the 3 videos that have been posted, that video has gotten more than 1,000 views collectively. He stated that Michigan United was an organization that was bought in from the outside. What occurred with that resolution is that these city council people, there was a 9-alarm alert done because 6 Caucasian council people, no, excuse me, 5 with the exception of Councilman Hertzberg, took it upon themselves to take steps to remove the criteria for a diversity commission. They did not want a diversity commission. And although Westland severely lacks statistically and as of present time, diversity in the city of Westland racially is almost non-existent. They took extra steps to remove every component that would have required internal policy change, true diversity, anti-racism principles, city employee education, diversity and within city hiring, city contracts. They removed all of that. And what they did was rewrote it to say that every opportunity for diversity will remain the responsibility of the mayor, his administration, and city council, which is how it's always been for 60 years. And they did not want a diversity commission. So what occurred was Michigan State Senators Erica Geist and Marshall Bullock got involved, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, the NAACP, the Inkster Ministerial Alliance, Michigan United, the Michigan Black Legislative Caucus, Femmes for Dems and Femmes for Change, A Better Westland, and several other organizations, but most importantly, multiple legitimate Westland residents expressed concern regarding what was interpreted as being a racist position taken by several council people. So, and what's more is that the week that resolution finally passed after much discussion and pushback, maybe 3 or 4 days later, our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, declared racism as a public health crisis statewide. So to have a coffee hour and to attempt to mislead our community, or to have representatives, the president of the Westland Democratic Club, Arthur Warren, and others, to provide false information, and then to depict me as someone who would be as irresponsible to start name calling in my position and as the woman that I am, it's totally inappropriate. So again, had I not been contacted by multiple Westland residents who were concerned about what may be transpiring on my part, and then also the fact that that video has gotten multiple views, and that several of these gentlemen were actually called out for their lack of professionalism at the meeting. Had it not been for that, and I would not want my reputation to be flawed due to someone intentionally lying, I would not be addressing this. But there are certain instances to when, if you don't speak the truth to a matter, it will, to a lie. If you don't speak the truth to a lie, it will become truth to certain people. And I refuse to let someone tell lies in terms of the way I would take, the way I take pride in representing myself and my citizens. So again, I thank you. And if anyone has any questions about the validity of what happened with city council and what some of these gentlemen did, or people, or excuse me, my colleagues did, if anyone says that it's not true, go back and watch the previous council meetings. And I also, if you contact me, you can visit my Facebook page, Councilwoman Tasha Green. I have statements on there from Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Senator Erica Geist, the entire Michigan Legislative Black Caucus. And like I said, the mayor, or excuse me, the governor passed it on a state level. Westland was the only city in the state of Michigan that took that position. And so it was very disappointing to hear the Westland Democratic Club president stand next to these councilmen and state that they were forced into supporting a measure that the first time you have the opportunity to support meaningful change, when you're knocking doors and you're going to NAACP meetings, the first time you have the opportunity to support legislation that benefits people of color, we had to call in everybody less than the president to make sure that Westland did the right thing. And that's what matters, not your actions, not your NAACP membership that you pay $30 a year for. What matters are your actions. And I encourage everyone to continue to watch our actions as politicians. Thank you so much. And I will see you in 2 weeks.
Councilman McDermott.
Good evening. So first off, on one end, it was stated that we don't call people names, and then on the other end, we're being implied that some of us are racist for going against a resolution. I want to paint a clear picture here on that. Racism is a public health crisis resolution with a couple of different things. Number one, that is something that I supported in its original form and also in its modification. And when I supported the modified version of the resolution, it was always with the intent that a diversity and inclusion board was going to be done, whether it was specifically put into the language or it was something that was done separately. What I'd like to do, though, is read an email exchange that I had with a colleague of mine. The initial email came with the modified resolution that was sent from Attorney Fasson. This was sent on Sunday, July 12th, 2020 at 2:52 p.m. And it said, Councilman McDermott, attached is the revised version of the proposed resolution to declare racism a health crisis. This was provided following legal review from Attorney Fasson. When possible, please review it and share any thoughts on what you think should be added and or removed. Per Council President Hart, the deadline to add this to the agenda for our next council meeting is Monday before 4 p.m. If you could weigh in before that, that would be great. If I don't hear from you, I will assume that there are no recommendations for changes. Thank you. And so I responded to that email on Monday, 7/13/2020 at 12:07 p.m. And I said to my colleague, hello, I think this is a great initiative and I'm glad that you were spearheading this. Thank you for doing so. I reviewed the language put forth by yourself and our city attorney, and it seems in line with what other neighboring communities like Canton Township are doing. Racism and bigotry are indeed public health crises, and it is incredibly important that we are adopting this here in the city of Westland. I would like to work with you on one or two other matters here in the very near future, which includes reinstating our currently vacant Board of Ethics and instituting a citizen oversight board to work in conjunction with the Westland PD. Please let me know if you have any time available in the near future to discuss this. Thank you again for taking the lead on this. Regards, myself. The reply back, which was the final in the email thread, it says, thank you, Councilman McDermott. I appreciate your support, as does our city. I'd love to work with you on making positive changes in Westland. Can you send me about 3 different days/times that are convenient for your schedule? I will select one that is mutually convenient for me and we can lock it in. So as far as that email exchange goes, I was under the impression that we were set and ready to go to vote on this resolution. No concerns specific to the resolution or language being changed or modified were addressed. I want to work with every colleague I have up here, including Councilwoman Green. I want to make sure that we have a diversity and inclusion board, and was always my intent, whether that was a part of the resolution or not, to make that something that we adopt here in the city of Westland. I have talked with the police chief, I have talked with the administration, I have talked with my colleagues, and I have brought it up here and with residents on numerous occasions about having a citizen oversight board, about looking into hiring social workers and hiring guidance counselors to work directly with our police department. In that email exchange, I didn't see any objections to the resolution specifically. It was the day before the council meeting that I received a call, which did go to my voicemail. And then I called the councilwoman back the next day, and we had about a 45-minute discussion regarding the resolution that evening. But in this particular email exchange from July 12th and July 13th, I didn't see that my colleague took umbrage with the resolution. But all of a sudden at the 11th hour, she may have had an issue with that, and I can certainly respect if she does, but to lump all of us into a category, myself and any of my colleagues, that we tried to intentionally gut this resolution, or that someone tried to take credit for it because of a procedure that we have to put it on the agenda, or to say that we didn't want a diversity and inclusion board, or that we're not fighting to acknowledge and change that racism is a serious public health crisis. To me, that's just incredulous. I mean, I look at this email exchange that I had with my colleague, and I didn't see anything that my colleague said to me that was wrong. And if she did believe that my answer back to her was something she disagreed with, I wish we could have had that conversation sooner than the day before or the day of the council meeting. So my phone number is always open to my colleague, and it's always open to residents at 734-890-2146. And frankly, I have participated in at least a dozen, not just this year, but far exceeding this year, Black Lives Matter protests and rallies in the city of Westland, those that have been organized by Pastor Pruitt and those that have been organized outside of the city of Westland. And it was not my intention nor the intention of any of my colleagues that I talked to gut this resolution. So again, I'm going to go back to the original point. If we want to talk about decorum, I agree that no one should call anyone names or should make inferences about someone's character or integrity. And I just don't appreciate at all that it's being inferenced that in some way I or my colleagues were trying to gut that resolution, and that as a result that I am somehow a racist or intolerant as a result. And I really take offense to that. There's a lot more I could say on that, but I think I'm going to move on to some other things here. But it really hurts me on a personal level to have it inferenced that, that I am a racist, or that I had an intent to gut that resolution, because I most certainly did not. And I most certainly wanted a diversity and inclusion board as something that we have here in the city of Westland, just as I want to see us have citizen oversight, just as I want to hire social workers, and just as I want to look at, hiring social workers and guidance counselors to work with our police department as well, to make sure that we have equal justice under the law for every single resident here in the city of Westland, no matter your background, your race, your ethnicity. It really hurts me to have those things inferred by me, especially when I had that cordial email exchange from July 12th and July 13th, where there didn't seem to be any umbrage with the resolution itself. So I'm incredibly disappointed, and I hope that we can move on from this and do what is right to make Westland an inclusive and welcoming community for everyone, no matter your background. Just really incredibly disappointed with that. I'd like to thank Lisa Nasserini, our grant writer, for all the important work that she's been doing this year and the financial resources that she's been able to secure for our police, for our fire, our first responders, for our parks as well. I'm glad to see the email today from the administration that we're looking to fill many of our boards and commissions, including the Diversity and Inclusion Board and the Board of Ethics. The Board of Ethics is something that myself, many of my colleagues, including Councilman Herzberg, Councilwoman Green, have brought up on numerous occasions, and I'm glad to see that it looks like we're finally making some headway so we can actually get that board filled and not have to keep talking about it. I wanted to say a note about someone who has influenced my life, and I think who's influenced probably quite a few people, and that is our Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who has recently passed away. It's very sad to see that she passed, that Justice Ginsburg passed this past Friday. She's been a great inspiration for so many of us. She's been a champion for equality, for equity, for women's rights in this country, and she's done a great deal to advance women's rights, not only within the legal field at a time when women were not allowed to oftentimes serve in the legal profession. We're not hired by law firms, and we're certainly not appointed as judges, and much less on the bench of the Supreme Court. Justice Ginsburg was a fierce an advocate as any for equity and justice for women and for all people. So I'm terribly sad that Justice Ginsburg, to hear of her passing. And again, I will say, if any one of my colleagues has a particular issue with my behavior, with something that I've done, with a vote I've taken, or with a potential vote I may take, my phone number, my phone line is always open, just as it is for any resident. I just don't appreciate that it be inferred that my intention was to gut a resolution and take the teeth out of it, when all along, I can tell you 100% the Diversity and Inclusion Board was something that I stood for, and that even if that wasn't a part of the resolution itself, it is something that I would have wanted to see as a separate action. I also, I'll just leave it at that. Nothing further from me tonight. Thank you.
Point of order, Council President. I was mentioned and I would like to briefly respond.
Please do.
Councilman McDermott, thank you for your comment. And I never said that you were a racist. I said the community interpreted the actions of several council people, and the mayor included, as being racist as it related to the action you took with that resolution. However, I just wanted to remind you, there are emails that were exchanged between June 15th. You were copied on them, the mayor, the city attorney, when I specifically questioned Council President Hart about all of the revisions that were done, including the removals. Also, the conversation that you and I had when we talked before the meeting, you did tell me that you were in agreement with everything that was removed and you were a part of it. You told me that yourself, and that's why I specifically always clarify that Peter had nothing to do with it. You then said, you gave me multiple reasons why you thought that it was okay. And so the bottom line is, every council person, we're all entitled to our own vote. My position is, when you let people come to stand up as at your meetings as a city representative, and you all are 4 elected officials standing next to each other, and you're making you're allowing statements to go, untrue statements to go forward about me, and then I'm being called into question by residents, I'm going to speak to that. Further, however you vote is your vote. No one can force you how to vote. I stand behind every vote I make, and I think we all should, and we should be free to do that. The bottom line is, own your actions. If you get called on the carpet for something that you did, we're not always going to get it right, but the bottom line is, that is exactly what you all did. And had that not been the case, we would not have had people all the way up to the federal level watching what's going on in the city of Westland, because of the issues in society and diversity that, like you said, were spoken about at the protest that you showed up to before you turned around and supported that resolution. And so you did get the email because I specifically began to ask about every one of those criteria that were removed. And you told me that you were in support of that final version that took every change away. It removed all changes and the diversity commission. And it said that the mayor and city council and the administration are going to continue with business as usual with looking for opportunities for diversity. So just own your actions is all I'm stating. You are not unclear about what occurred. Whether you are a racist, I never said you were a racist. I personally don't believe that you are a racist. But if your actions appear to do something other than be as inclusive as you claim to be, and the community that elected you believe that your actions appear to be racist, then that is what it is. So again, you all don't want to have these conversations. Do not misrepresent me and have residents calling me about a coffee hour that you all had.
Councilwoman Green, just so you know, you've hit the rebuttal time of 3 minutes per the policies and procedures.
Thank you.
Next, we have Councilman Hertzberg.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in on this conversation too. We're the ones that we're constantly in a position where we have to defend ourselves, okay? Now, we were at the coffee hour and Godbout was making statements. We were all asked the same question. And that was about blanket statements made by all of us, about all of us during council meetings. And, I want to come out with it because, I support you, Councilwoman Green. I support a lot of your questions, your motions, but I do have an issue when I'm getting emails, meeting after meeting, from residents making false allegations against me. The last meeting, we had a conversation about the computers and donating them to the schools. Now, I supported a motion initially that was withdrawn for whatever reason, But I get an email saying, you know, how dare you, Councilman Hersberg, you don't want to donate those laptops. You're sharing information and people are taking things as fact and they're taking it a step further. You know, if residents we get nasty emails, that's part of the job. You know, if a resident wants to email me about something that they disagree with, that I voted a certain way, that's fine. But, you know, it's meeting after meeting. It's back when this COVID started, there was talk about allowing pledge students to come into the meetings. I got 3 or 4 nasty emails that day saying, how dare you vote this way? We never even took a vote on it. And all this is coming from Facebook posts, so on and so forth. And, you know, I'm not trying to get in the middle of this, but I have to say something. It's just, it keeps going on. It's not name calling, okay? It's statements that affect us all. And unfortunately, one was made today. It was mentioned that there's city officials that were promising people marijuana licenses, but then you don't name anybody. So really, we're all getting thrown under the bus when things like that are said. I mean, if that's true, did you contact the state police to have them investigate it? I mean, you know, I'm going to continue to support you in your motions, and I don't have a personal issue, but when we're talking about our reputations here, it's affecting us all. You know, so just please be more clear. We all worked hard to be here. We all care about what we're voting on. You know, and I'm not by any means defending Godbout's comments or anything like that, but we can't control what other people are saying. You know, should the question have been ignored perhaps at the coffee hour? Sure. But again, we are the ones that are being put in a position to have to defend ourselves, okay? And I see comments online right away when the video is posted, you know, against all 3 of us that did the coffee hour. And it's really just unfortunate. I'm not here to play politics, but this has to be addressed because this goes on meeting after meeting and people are getting the wrong idea is what I'm trying to say about what's actually happening. So other than that, the coffee hour I thought went really well. It was long overdue. We, you know, aside from that conversation, which was just 2 minutes of the coffee hour, we talked about a lot of other things. I was there about 3 hours. The first half of it, Councilman Godbout, Councilman McDermott, and myself answered questions, gave some updates that we thought were necessary. During the middle, State Representative Coleman, he was there. He jumped in and talked for about 45 minutes about Lansing updates. And actually towards the end, school board member Melody Hines came and there was a long discussion on back to school plans and that. So, and we also stayed around, you know, for about an hour after that, just socializing and talking about city issues. So, you know, perhaps if council does move forward with more coffee hours, I think it's important that maybe at the beginning we can all make a statement that says, you know, keep the comments to a certain parameter. Let's not. The issue is we had a lot of Democrats over here in the coffee hour. We had a lot of Republicans, and unfortunately with COVID, it became a political issue and there was some debate. You know, other coffee hours that wasn't an issue because, you know, we're talking about parks, we're talking about services. So just if we could get a statement together maybe for these coffee hours to just keep the conversation positive, looking towards future votes, future programming. I think we're going to be in good shape. The only other update I have, there's still time to sign up to be an election official. Contact the clerk's office. He still needs quite a few more people. It's 16 and up. So, and then, you know, I just want to point out again that it was mentioned a couple meetings ago about if we go back to in-person meetings, can we still stream the meetings on YouTube or on Zoom? I think it's a good idea. I really think we should look into it. I don't know how the other council members feel about it, but today there's 49 people attending the meeting, 29 on Zoom and about 20, 25 on YouTube. And that's not including the 15 to 20 panelists. So I have heard that other cities are doing it. Maybe not everybody's as mobile. And if they want to speak at citizens' comments when we're meeting in person, this would allow them to speak from home. It's just an idea, but I'd like to hear more from the other council members if that's something the city should look into or not. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Godbout.
Thanks. I'd like to start by congratulating Mr. Anderson on his appointment as an alternate to the Board of Review. That is truly one of the thankless boards to sit on, but it's a very important board, and I really appreciate him stepping up and offering to serve on the Board of Review. I too would like to thank Lisa for the good news on over $2 million in grant awards that the city has received. The money is much needed. We'll be following closely on the 1.5 million that's still outstanding, and hopefully we're able to land a portion of that money as well. There's been a lot of conversation about the coffee hour and what transpired at the coffee hour. My response, which wasn't the first response in regards to a question that was asked from a resident, and the issue about name calling, and I did say that there was some name calling, and as a result, even tonight, there was name calling. I was called a liar tonight for making that statement. In the past, there's been a name calling for other residents saying they lack integrity, that the people within the administration or the council president at one of the meetings lacked integrity. There's been accusations of nepotism and accusations that our actions were racist. It rooted in racism was another accusation that was hurled. So as well as our council president was a plagiarist in another discussion. So you know, I'll stand by my comments. There is a lot of accusations and issues being raised that you know, question everyone's integrity, and it's not fair to those of us that serve on this council. It's not fair to the administration. It's not fair to the employees that get questioned about their abilities, and it just continues to go on. And it's unfortunate, but it's also unfortunate there's not much we can do about it. So thanks.
Councilwoman Rakowski.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to extend my thanks once again to the VFW Post 9885 BOVA for hosting us and including us as part of their ceremony for the POW MIA Day last Friday. I'd also like to congratulate and thank Mr. Cleveland Anderson. It's been mentioned that it's a thankless job, but you know, I'm always very excited and proud when our citizens want to be involved in their city. Good citizenship is always a good thing. So if you are interested in following in Mr. Cleveland's footsteps, you too can apply to serve on our various boards and commissions. If you go to our website, cityofwestland.com, and go to OpenGov and then to boards and commissions, you will see the application. If the board that you are hoping to be a part of isn't listed on there, go ahead and just make a notation. Okay. I'm really excited to hear how much money that we are getting back in grants. You know, one of our jobs here on the council is to be stewards of the city's budget. And it would be a complete falsehood if I said that I wasn't concerned that what our budgetary and fiduciary impact was going to be after COVID. And I feel like I can exhale now I feel like we're going to be in a much better position and still have some fund balance left. And looking forward to seeing what else the Nasserini Strategy Group provides for our city. It's very late and I'm going to go tuck my son in, and I hope the rest of you have a wonderful evening. Good night.
All right, Councilwoman. Council President Pro Tem Michael Londo.
Thank you, President Hart. I'll start off tonight by congratulating Mr. Cleveland Anderson on your appointment to the City of Westland Board of Review. As we stated earlier, I appreciate you stepping up and asking to serve. I believe you'll be a great fit for this board. If you need anything from us, feel free to reach out at any time. Incredible work by Nasserini Strategies and all of our staff here at City Hall that worked really hard on securing the grant funding for the city. It's a huge win for us in a year where all forms of government are experiencing, financial losses. I was jotting down these numbers like crazy, and I'll recap them. Just the overall total. So she said we brought in $2,055,978 were awarded, and $1,529,302.10 are pending still. So that's fantastic news to be bringing in these dollars to our city again when all forms of government are experience this. It was mentioned earlier that our public library director may be stepping down. If that is the case, I know there's a board meeting on Wednesday. I'm going to try to attend. We're going to miss him really. Mr. Lexum, I can't even say his name, Ishwar. I apologize. I can never say his last name correct, so we'll just say Ishwar. It's been a pleasure serving with you for the past few years. You've been a concert professional, and I really enjoyed our conversations and working relationship. There wasn't a city event where you weren't there or somebody from your staff was there. And again, I really enjoyed our conversations and what you've done over at the library. So we're going to miss you if in fact you are leaving. Councilwoman Rakowski brought up the POW MIA ceremony at the Veteran Foreign Wars Post 985 BOVA, for many of us know, on Hicks Road. Great job to everyone involved in that. It was a beautiful evening, and thank you to the Westland Police Honor Guard as well as the Wayne County Sheriff's Honor Guard as well. It was an incredible event, and really staggering numbers when you hear the MC, the speaker that was speaking, and going through detail on all of the staggering numbers from those that were lost in war or are missing in action. Very somber to hear that. So if you didn't get a chance to attend the meeting, the event, I believe it's airing on WLND and also on the YouTube channel. If you just look up WLND, don't forget to subscribe on WLND. I think that's it tonight, Council President. Late.
All right. Well, I think I had you on the over for today, so I think you're doing all right, Council President Pro Tem. Thank you, everybody. I had a couple things. Lisa Nasserini and the Nasserina Strategy Group, again, fantastic work. I think Councilman Rakowski put it really well. I'm breathing a little bit sigh of relief. I know it's we're not completely unscathed, but I'm a lot less panicked than I was a couple months ago. So we actually might come through this relatively okay. I don't know how long we can sustain that. So hopefully COVID goes away soon and we can get back to our normal lives and revenue gets to where it needs to be. But thank you so much. I want to thank Mr. Anderson. It was brought up, it is a thankless job. It can be a very tough one, the Board of Review. So it's very thankful to have you kind of stand up for that. If your photo profile was correct, I would encourage you to wear that when you're at the Board of Review. If you ever have to serve in their stead, it'll be easier for people not to give you such a hard time. You are there to kind of defend the tax roll a little bit. So it's a tough job, but there's a couple folks on there that are just outstanding people and you couldn't ask for a better group of people to work with. So, the virtual Relay for Life, the Relay for Life was canceled this year, and I was asked to remind you again, the virtual Relay for Life is going to be going on soon. So get all your information at relayforlife.org/westlandwaynemi.org. So excuse me, just /westlandwaynmi. The org was already in there. So the BOVA, the POW MIA, thank you to all my colleagues who showed up to that. I appreciate it. I was out of town. That event does mean a lot to me as a member of the VFW, and I know Councilman Rakowski is an auxiliary member, so thank you. But thank you everybody who was able to make it there. It does mean a lot to me. We just couldn't make it work this weekend, the family and I. So, but next year we'll try and see if we can get it to work. But if those of you who have never gone, they do it every year. Try to go next year. It is open to the public and all the members. They put on a great event. It's really somber, but it's you feel better coming out of it. You feel a lot more thankful for kind of the sacrifices that have been put forward for all of us to give us the right to sit here and complain and treat each other like children. What else do we have? Oh, the clerk's office, Mr. LeBlanc. You look tired, but you look as good as always. I don't envy you all the efforts you've been putting through in your office. So I know a lot of requests have come from the clerk, and the clerk's put out some information here and there. So there are some little misinformation that's going on out there. So do give the clerk's office a break. He's been getting some things that he's really not equipped, and no clerk's offices are equipped to deal with. But he's working through them. I'm confident with him and his staff. It's just, he's working really hard. So please be patient with the clerk's office. Councilman McDermott did bring up Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Very inspirational. I think we lost so much with her, and I hope that we can put somebody in her place is just as dynamic and powerful. That is yet to be seen, but we can only pray. And the last thing is the coffee hours. We kind of talked about this last time a little bit, sort of. The coffee hours aren't a city council thing. The coffee hours are politician things, right? 3 politicians get together and they meet with some residents, and they're speaking on behalf of themselves. They're giving them some council updates, but it's a political thing, right? To be honest with you, they're out there, they're doing that's great. Those coffee hours have no place here in our business meeting. They just don't. If things are said over there in the coffee hours, then I would ask you guys in the future, if you're upset with each other, fight it out on email, meet in person and work over it. Or I know a lot of you leverage your social media, and if you feel you got to throw rocks, do it there. But I mean, honestly, it has no place here. This is a business meeting, and the residents aren't here to sit here and watch us fight amongst ourselves over he said, she said. It's just ridiculous, guys. We're all better than that. We're all better than that. So I'm asking you all be better than that. Join me and kind of rise above some of this really silly nonsense that we've been seeing lately. We're all better than that. And with that, I'll thank you everybody for your time. Is there a motion to adjourn? You guys are having that much fun?
I'll move. Sorry.
There you go. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.